I'm not stupid. The books are stupid. She looked like she stepped out of a literal sewer. I can't defend this behavior. She is just so stupid. Oh my god. That's gotta be some furry shit. Hey, Amelia. This has been a long time coming because I started rereading this series in December. And now it is May. I feel genuine fear about how long this video is going to be. We might be here for a while. Grab a snack, grab some water, get comfortable. Put me on 2x speed in the background if that is your gig. Because today we are talking about the LUNAR Chronicles. Let's go. These books were my shit in middle school. I ate them up, read them so fast, over and over again. I loved these books. They do read a bit differently in 2024 than they did in 2015 because we have, of course, survived a pandemic. And this book is about a pandemic and like other stuff. The vibes are a little different reading them now. For the uninitiated, the LUNAR Chronicles is like a sci-fi dystopian fairy tale retelling set in the way future. They are by Marissa Meyer and they are so delightfully bad. Like a lot of flaws. I love them anyway. Let's get freaking started. Book 1, Cinder. We open with our main character, Cinder. She is a cyborg, which means that like she's part robot, part human. She lives in the Eastern Commonwealth of New Beijing. I will get more into this later. In this futuristic world, the like countries as we know them today are not the same, but they're sort of the same, but they're not exactly the same. The Eastern Commonwealth is all of the Asian countries. I'll get into it later. So she lives in the Eastern Commonwealth. She lives in New Beijing. She was adopted by this guy, Lin Garin. He adopted her from France, brought her back to New Beijing with his wife and his 2 daughters, and then he died. And he left Cinder with her stepmother and 2 stepsisters. And not so much stepmother, like adoptive parents. I didn't explain this. I trusted you could use context clues. This book is based off of Cinderella, loosely. They are all loosely based off of separate fairy tales. So she's left with her evil adopted mother and her 2 evil adopted sisters. Well, one of them is evil. The evil one is named Pearl, and then she also has another adopted sister called Peony. Her and Peony are like besties. They get along. So the family's surname is Lin, L-I-N-H, which according to Google, now I am no expert, but according to Google, that is a Vietnamese surname. The book is set in Beijing, which is in China. I have some questions, comments, and concerns about this specifically because I think the goal was to be like, this is like a multicultural, like everything, but like I don't think that our queen Marissa Meyer was thinking in fact that deeply about it, and it comes off just like a little bit ignorant, you know? Cinder has nothing and no one except for her best friend who is also a robot. The robot is called Aiko, and Aiko she's a Serve 9.2 is like the make of robot that she is, but she has a faulty personality chip, so she's like a person. She has very person vibes. Cinder also has a special skill, and her special skill is that she is the best mechanic in New Beijing, and it's because she has a literal computer in her brain, and so she can just like pull up the schematics of a thing and be like, oh, I know exactly what's wrong with it. She has Google for free in her brain, essentially. Because she is a cyborg and she has all these cyborg special skills, she can tell when people are lying to her. Cinder has a mechanic booth at the New Beijing market, and so one day she's at the market and the freaking Prince Kai comes up to her and he's like, hey, can you fix my robot? She's broken. She's like, just upgrade to a better model, like this model is really old. And he goes, I'm afraid I can't do that. She contains top secret information. It's a matter of national security that I retrieve it before anyone else does. And then he's like, I'm just joking, haha, she was my first android, so I'm a bit sentimental. But remember, Cinder can tell when people are lying. He wasn't lying for the first part, but when he was like, haha, I'm just joking, he was lying. So it is in fact a matter of national security. He leaves his robot Nancy there to get fixed. One thing about Cinder is she is not like other girlies. While all the other girlies are like tripping over themselves to get Kai to pay attention to them, she doesn't care. She's got better things to worry about, like such as being a mechanic. Prince Kai leaves. Spaghetti-o. Someone in the stall across the market from Cinder's booth has the plague. Everyone freaks out and the market is canceled for the day, and they burn down the booth of the person who has the plague. The plague, someone yelled, she has the plague. The streets filled with panic. Mothers scooped up their children, masking their faces with desperate hands as they scrambled to get away from Sasha's booth. As someone who recently lived through a pandemic, I have some questions about the way they're handling this global emergency. There seems to be no effort being made. And the plague has been going on for 15 years. Cinder and Aiko sneak out of the market and they get back to their house. Pearl and Peony are getting their dresses fitted to go to the Commonwealth Ball. I think that the purpose of this ball is to, like, find him a wife. I might be fully making this up, but he might have to marry for, what's it called? Like, allegiance purposes, like, for political allegiance. Yeah, that makes sense. That's the word. Allegiance purposes. I think his thought process is that if he finds a wife before that, he won't have to marry for political gain, right? So he's holding this ball to try to find a wife. Pearl and Peony are going because their mom wants them to marry the prince, but Cinder's not allowed to go. She's like, can I go? Audrey, who is her adopted mother, is like, well, you don't have enough money to buy a dress, and also you have to complete all these chores, but if you get through all the chores and you buy a dress, then maybe you can go. But we all know she's full of shit, because this is literally a beat-for-beat retelling of Cinderella. So there's no chance of Cinder going to the ball. And now would be the perfect time for some clumsy exposition about the cyborg draft. Let's talk about it. Research on the plague had been underway since the first outbreak occurred in a small town in the African Union over a dozen years ago. Again, with this goddamn world building, the entire continent of Africa is now one country. So for keeping track, all Asian countries are now one country, and all African countries are also a single country. Something doesn't feel super right about that. I'm gonna be so honest. It feels a little weird because England and Europe are two separate countries. Hello? That makes no sense, and it feels a little racist, not gonna lie. It's racist. It's so racist, and it doesn't even make sense, like, politically. In the Eastern Commonwealth, in New Beijing, they have this thing called the cyborg draft, which every morning they draw. I picture it like, you know, those bingo ball spinners. I know that that's not actually probably what it is. So they draw a name, and they take them, and they test the plague antidote on them. Girl, they have made no progress on this antidote, so they're literally killing people. They're just killing people. The cyborg draft had been started by some royal research team a year ago. Every morning, a new ID number was drawn from the pool of so many thousand cyborgs who resided in the Eastern Commonwealth. The subjects had been carted in from provinces as far-reaching as Mumbai and Singapore to act as guinea pigs for antidote testing. So anyway, Cinder doesn't even want to go to the ball. I hate to break this to you, Aiko, she said, slamming it in the drawer and moving on to the next, but I am not going to the ball. For starters, I just spent my life savings on a new foot. But even if I did have the money, I wouldn't spend it on a dress or shoes or gloves. What a waste! At the ball, Prince Kai is looking for a wife. And this is important because there has been talk of him marrying Queen Lavanna. Queen Lavanna is the queen of Luna, which is the moon. So there's a country on the moon. She really wants to marry Prince Kai. Well, she wanted to marry his dad, but he has the plague. Spoiler. His dad has the plague, so Kai is going to become the emperor pretty soon. Lavanna wants control over the world. Lunars have this very special power called glamour. So essentially, they can change their appearance. They can, like, brainwash you into thinking that you're seeing something different than you actually are. It's about, like, the bioelectric brain waves coming out of your brain. They can, like, manipulate those. We don't like the Lunars. The very important thing is, though, is that glamour cannot be seen over cameras. So anytime Lavanna has to appear on camera, she wears a veil. Lunars were a society that had evolved from an Earth and Moon colony centuries ago, but they weren't human anymore. People said Lunars could alter a person's brain, make you see things you shouldn't see, feel things you shouldn't feel, do things you shouldn't do. Their unnatural power made them a greedy and violent race, and Queen Lavanna was the worst of them all. Queen Lavanna murdered Princess Celine. Queen Lavanna's sister was Queen Canary. She had a daughter called Celine. Queen Canary died. Lavanna ascended to the throne. She killed Celine so that she wouldn't have anyone to, like, challenge her ascension to the throne. Cinder is going to go to the junkyard because she needs to find an extra part for a robot that she's fixing, and Peony wants to go with her and have some, like, bestie girl time. They go to the junkyard. They find the piece that Cinder needs to fix this robot. They also find an old car. Everyone nowadays uses these things called hovers. There's, like, magnets in the roads, and so the cars, like, hover on top of them. But they found, like, an old gas car, so it's old as fuck. Cinder is like, this could be an escape car. If I could fix it up, I could run away. And then Peony starts showing symptoms of the plague. The literal plague. And Cinder is like, oh shit, did I bring it back from the market? Did I kill her? Also, she's like, am I gonna die? did I catch the plague from Peony? We were hanging out all afternoon. The medical robots come in and they test Peony and they're like, she has the plague, so they take her away to the quarantine. They also test Cinder. She's all clear. That also means she definitely did not give it to Peony. So Cinder goes back to her apartment and she's all sad because, first of all, nobody survives the plague. So Peony is basically as good as dead, and Cinder loved her, and so she's like mourning this loss. But she gets back to the apartment and her stepmom Audrey is pissed. She's like, I never wanted you in my life, and now you go and kill my real daughter, whom I actually quite love. Audrey volunteers Cinder for plague research. Basically, she signs Cinder up to also die because she's going to get injected with the plague and then catch the plague and die. The family of the person who volunteered for plague research gets like a monetary kickback. Cinder gets taken by the medical robots to the palace's plague research center, and she obviously does not go willingly. She freaks out, and so they shock her with like a bunch of electricity and she passes out. While she's passed out, she has this crazy dream, and it's basically that like she is being burned alive. That's like her dream, and apparently she has this dream all the time. This is where we meet Dr. Erland. I'm going to go with Erland. It's what feels right in my heart. He is the lead doctor at the medical facility. He's also the one who suggested the whole cyborg draft. Like, this is his idea. He's also, like, a little eccentric and a little crazy for reasons that will become clear later. At the medical facility, Dr. Erland does some tests on Cinder to see what percentage of cyborg she is. Comes back that she is 36.26% robot, which is a lot because most people are not more than 10%. And then they inject her with the plague, and the craziest thing happens. She is freaking immune to the plague. As they watched, 2 more dots flickered and disappeared like burned out light bulbs. Lee grabbed his port screen off the desk and pounded his fingers against it. Her immune system is going berserk. They draw a blood sample to like do some more tests on her, and Dr. Erland asks her a bunch of questions about herself. We learn that Cinder was adopted from Europe. She had cyborg surgery when she was 11 because she almost died in a hovercraft crash, is what she understands. Dr. Erland is like, girl, you're now the most valuable part of finding a cure because you're immune to the plague. And she's like, sick, can I leave? And he's like, but I need you to come back for tests. So they strike up a little deal. Cinder is allowed to come and go as she pleases, but she has to come back to the palace for like testing and stuff. She will also be paid, and it will be put into a separate account that Audrey can't access. And when they find the cure, Peony is going to be the second person in line to get it after the literal emperor. Before she leaves, Dr. Erland does some crazy like chiropractics and she passes out again. She twisted her head as Dr. Erland walked around the table and placed the tips of his fingers on her neck, pinching the vertebrae just above her shoulders. Fire and pain ruptured her spine, flooding her veins. She cried out and fell off the table, crumpling to the floor. And this is why I don't trust chiropractors. I'm afraid they could literally kill me. When she comes to, guess who the fuck is there? Literally the prince. And he's like, is she okay? Like, what did you do to her? And he's like, oh, no big. I just like readjusted her spine, did some chiropractics, and like she had an adverse reaction to it. But remember, Cinder can tell when people's lying. He's not telling the truth. Cinder's like, ah, shit. Now he knows that I'm a cyborg and he won't like me anymore. Even though she definitely doesn't care how he thinks about her because she doesn't like him and she's so over all that, she doesn't even give a fuck. Not to like armchair psychologize, but seems like he might give a fuck, babe. If you are worried about the way he is perceiving you, seems like maybe you do care just a little bit. That's just a me thing though. Dr. Erland is like, no, she just came down here to fix some of the med droids. They were all acting up. And Cinder's like, why is he lying to the prince? Thanks for not blowing my cover. What reason do you have to like hide this from him? So Cinder goes home and Audrey is like, what the fuck did you do, Cinder? Surely you've done something wrong because no way they just like sent you home. And she's like, I don't know what to tell you, girl. They didn't need me anymore. So suck on that, you whore. She and Aiko decide that they're going to fix up the car from the junkyard and they are going to escape. And they're going to escape on the night of the Commonwealth Ball. In other news, the emperor died. Very sad. Rest in peace, emperor. But that means that Kai is now officially the emperor. Well, he still has to be coronated? Is coronated? He still has to be crowned emperor. He still has to go through the whole coronation. But, like, for all intents and purposes, he's the emperor as of right now because his dad died. He has a meeting with Queen Lavanna, the Lunar Queen, over Skype. The Queen's glamour, her ability to make people see her as divinely beautiful by manipulating their brainwaves, could not translate over the net screens. Therefore, she never allowed herself to be seen over them. So she's wearing, like, a veil to, like, hide whatever's going on under there. Lavanna is like, I'm gonna visit and see if we can come up with a peace agreement. The thing is that Lavanna has been threatening to do war against Earth for the past 12 years. What else started 12 years ago? That must just be a coincidence now. Definitely no relation, I'm sure. But yeah, she's only been interested in literal war for the past 12 years. And now she's like, let's do some peace. Seems a bit suspicious, right? Doesn't feel like she's being completely honest with us. Cinder gets a little email notification that Peony is now in the third and final stage of the plague. So she's going to die quickly. So Cinder decides now that she's immune, she's going to go to the quarantine and visit Peony. This is a colossally bad idea because the quarantines are locked up tight, and I'm sure someone is going to notice a perfectly healthy person walking around the quarantine. It's definitely going to raise some alarm bells, but no. Cinder is suffering from dumb bitch-itis. She will literally do anything. So she goes to the quarantines, she visits Peony, it's all sad. Right before she's about to leave, she sees some medical robots taking out the ID chips of dead people. Cinder's like, that's suspicious. She goes straight from the quarantines to the palace to pay a visit to Dr. Erland. On the way to the medical wing, she runs into Kai. She cleared her throat. You should, just call me Cinder. You don't have to be so diplomatic. The corner of the prince's lip quirked, but the almost smile didn't reach his eyes. All right, Cinder, are you following me? He met her gaze, surprised, as if he'd forgotten who he was speaking with. Then, you can call me Kai. She blinked. Excuse me? No more your highness. I get enough of that from everyone else. You should just call me Kai. So they're like kind of flirting, kind of falling in love. I don't know. The energy is definitely there. He tells her that the Lunar Queen is coming to visit New Beijing. You don't know her. She's a rando, essentially. You've met her, twice? You can't be giving out this confidential information to randos. Oh my God. He has no sense of national security. Feels like a bad thing to be just like publicizing, right? But anyway, he tells her and she's trustworthy, so she's not going to tell anybody. They're literally in an elevator together flirting. Kai asks Cinder to be his personal guest to the ball. And she's like, no, sorry, I'm not going. And the prince is like, aw, darn. Okay, bye. And she leaves. Cinder asks Dr. Erland about the ID chips that she saw getting stolen. And he is like, the chips are extracted from the deceased and sold off. Illegally, of course, but I understand they can fetch a high price. She's like, why would anyone buy an ID chip? And he's like, well, if you're running away or if you're immigrating from the moon, perhaps, you'll need an ID chip. And she's like, what do you mean? So we get some very important information about the lunar besties. To Queen Lavanna's endless dismay, not all lunars are so easily brainwashed into mindless contentment, and many have risked their lives to escape Luna and relocate here. It's difficult to leave the moon, and I'm sure many more die attempting it than succeed, especially as more restrictions are put on lunar ports. But I'm sure it still happens. And Cinder's like, wait a minute, there are lunars living amongst us? Dr. Erland is like, yeah, there are. And then Dr. Erland whips out the biggest plot twist on the face of this goddamn planet. He says, Miss Lynn, from your blood sample, I have deduced that you are, in fact, lunar. Oh my God, when I tell you 13-year-old me was shook to my core at this revelation. So all lunars are immune to the plague. Dr. Erland says, lunars are the original carrier hosts for leishmaniasis, which is the name of the plague. Their migration to the rural areas of Earth, mostly to escape Lavanna's dictatorship, brought the disease into contact with humans for the first time. It is lunar immigrants' fault that the plague exists on Earth. Cinder feels really bad. She's like, did I bring the plague into my family? Dr. Erland is like, so Queen Lavanna is coming to visit the Eastern Commonwealth, and if you're in the building while she's here, she will kill you. And also she'll probably start a war. So when she's here, make yourself scarce. Do not come anywhere in the vicinity of the palace. This seems like a bit of a no-brainer to me. Like, you wouldn't have to tell me twice. Maybe I'm selfish. Maybe I have my own, self-preservation instincts in mind more so than Cinder does. But if someone is telling me that I would be in extreme danger if I did something that was very easy not to do, I simply wouldn't do it. Like, if I was told to avoid the palace or else I would be killed, and for for a couple days? Come on. There is simply no business that Cinder has that is so important that she needs to go to the the palace. Lavanna lands in the Eastern Commonwealth. Cinder goes back home to work on Kai's robot, and she finds a decom chip, and it doesn't look like it belongs in the robot. It turns out it's a lunar communication chip. She fixes the robot, and the robot automatically turns on and starts spouting information about Princess Celine. Expected that a man by the name of Logan Tanner, a lunar doctor who worked under the reign of Queen Canary, first brought Princess Celine to Earth approximately 4 months after her alleged death. Those sources indicate that Princess Celine had been given another keeper years before Tanner's death. One suspect is the ex-military pilot from the European Federation, Wing Commander Michelle Benoit. She's getting all this important information from the android, and she's like, Kai needs to know this. Kai needs to hear what the android found. She's like, I need to go give it to him now. This is of the utmost importance. But remember, the Lunar Queen is here. She's in the building. Let's go over some of her other options, because we are rational people. She could call Kai. She could email him. She could call Dr. Erland. I don't know, like wait a few days. But no, she goes in person. It was her responsibility to get the android back to Kai safe and sound. Girl, it is not that serious. I respect her for taking her job so seriously, but there is no way she's being paid enough to put her whole life in danger. So she brings the robot to the palace, and the robot gets in no problem because like it literally belonged to the palace, but Cinder can't get past the guards. There's also a bunch of protesters there protesting the Lunar Queen. And then the Queen literally shows up and she brainwashes the whole crowd. But Cinder is immune to her brainwashing, so she doesn't get brainwashed. The Queen literally sees her, because of course she does. Cinder stumbled back a step, colliding with a senseless middle-aged man. The Queen's gaze jerked toward them, focusing on Cinder. A wash of surprise flashed over her face, then hatred, disgust. I say that the Queen could not brainwash Cinder. That's not entirely true. At first, Cinder was brainwashed, but then her cyborg brain took over and was like, this is a lie, this isn't true, and she was able to like rationalize herself out of being brainwashed by Queen Lavanna. She had not been entirely immune to the glamour the way shells were supposed to. Worse still, the Queen had seen her and she had known. Right, I don't think I explained this earlier, I might have, but shells are lunars who were born without the lunar gift. Most lunars are born with the ability to brainwash people. Some are more capable of it than others, but all are able to, except for shells. Shells aren't able to brainwash people, but they also aren't able to be brainwashed. And Dr. Erland told Cinder that she was a shell. She was brainwashed. So she's like, so he wasn't telling exactly the truth. I'm not a shell because I did get brainwashed. The Queen goes to Kai and she's like, you're harboring lunar fugitives, and if you don't round them up and give them to me so that I can execute them, we will wage war. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. We definitely don't. She's like, I literally saw one. And then she's like, also, here is the cure to the plague. Sorry it's a single day late and I couldn't have saved your dad. So Cinder got seen by the Queen. What do you think she does? You think she runs? You think she hides? No, that would be too rational. Cinder goes into the palace, where the Queen literally is. I can't defend this behavior. She is just so stupid. On her way to see him, she runs into Kai. He's like, thanks for fixing my robot. By any chance did you hear what she said? And Cinder's like, yeah, sorry. And so now Kai and Cinder are like kind of in cahoots together. And she also tells him about the communication chip that she found. And he's like, it's a lunar chip. And she's like, oh, fuck. Kai and Cinder are besties who kind of flirt sometimes, but he also is confiding in her a lot. Instead of kissing her, he whispered, imagine there was a cure, but finding it would cost you everything. It would completely ruin your life. What would you do? Cinder wet her mouth. Ruin my life to save a million others? It's not much of a choice. Kai kind of has to marry Queen Lavanna, but here's the catch-22. If she marries him, she will give him the cure to the plague. He will be able to like save all the millions of people who are dying and suffering of this horrible disease. But she will take control over all of Earth and enslave all the Earthen people and probably kill Kai. There's no real winning in this situation. Like, it's just a shit situation all around. I don't think it's like quite as simple as he made it seem to Cinder when he was like asking for her advice. After this conversation, Cinder goes to see the doctor. She's like, listen, doctor, you said I was a lunar shell and that I would be immune to Lavanna's power, and yet I wasn't. And he's like, first of all, what the fuck are you doing here, you idiot? Yeah, sorry, I lied a little bit. So it turns out she has this like weirdo spine implant that masked her own lunar gift, but it got dislodged when Dr. Erland did his weird, like, crazy chiropractics on her. And so now the lunar gift in her is out. It is a device that ties in with a person's nervous system. It has two purposes. On an earthen, it prevents outside manipulation of their personal bioelectricity. Essentially, it makes it so that they are immune to lunar control. Oppositely, when it is installed in a lunar, it keeps them from being able to manipulate the bioelectricity of others. It was as if you put a lock on your lunar gift. She is immune to the glamour because she is 36% robot, but she doesn't use her glamour because she has this weird spine thing. Also, Dr. Erland sort of Freudian slips and tells her that he's a lunar also. So we get some of Dr. Erland's backstory along with some heavy-handed symbolism for lunars as like immigrants. Let's talk about it. Sometimes I'm wary to read too far into symbolism in YA books because oftentimes I don't think that the authors were thinking that hard about it. However, a lot of YA is inherently political because it's about young people's place in politics, and you can't talk about that without having it tie back to the real world, you know? I also think that young readers are a lot smarter than the publishing industry gives them credit for. The Lunar Chronicles, the political takes are rough. A lot of people tell me it's not that serious, they're just YA books, like they're just for fun. Read them just for fun. It's hard to read books just for fun when they have such heavy-handed metaphors for things that are real-life political issues. Young readers pick up on that. The whole series, but really the first book, has a lot of interesting political takes. There's the lunar immigrants. There's also cyborgs are shut out of public spaces. They are owned by their families. The draft is run on cyborgs to test secure because it's quote-unquote better than doing it on humans, which very clearly parallels a lot of the history with Black people in the medical system, how their pain is treated differently than white people because of this vast history of medical professionals being taught that Black people feel pain differently, which is not true. I found a really good article by Sierra Hale in Race in Young Adult Speculative Fiction. I'll try to link it below. It was a really interesting read, so highly recommend. Hale talks about the fact that these books are set in countries that have very real histories of, quote, the violence of imperialism and the pain of discrimination and segregation. You can't separate them from the real, true history that they have experienced. Marissa Meyer doesn't build on that history in a meaningful way, but rather she chooses to ignore it in favor of her new metaphor. I'm going to read a quote from the article. In the series, the same racial problems are repeated in different forms, in the same locales with no recognition of that history. The series aims to create an anti-racist message for its readers, but it doesn't link the oppression of the future with that of the past and present. This link would strongly reinforce the message and create a greater possibility for social change. Its absence is a serious misstep. There are a lot of issues with the way that race and culture are handled in this book series. I don't know. I don't have time to get into all of it right now, right here in this context, but I highly suggest reading this article. It was really interesting and it goes a lot more in depth than what I can do. And, you know, always consume your content critically. Like, I enjoy these books. I think they're super fun to read, but I think that it is really important that we engage with the media that we consume in a critical way. Anyway, that was a major tangent. So, oh god, we're only 6 pages into my 24-page script. Jesus fucking Christ. Okay. Anyway, Cinder is at the palace and the emperor has just died and she's chatting with the doctor when she gets a message from the quarantine that Peony is like about to die. Since the emperor died, guess who's on the top of the list? Guess who's getting the cure for the plague first? It's Peony. So Dr. Erland gives Cinder the antidote and he's like, I beg you, don't come back here. Do not come back here while Lavanna is here. She will end your life. Like, leave and never come back. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. You would not have to tell me twice. Oh my god, I would be out of there so fucking fast. I would have never even been there in the first place. I feel like I'd be a really bad YA protagonist because I have such a low tolerance for like fucking around and finding out. If I think that an action will have a consequence that I just don't feel very interested in, I simply won't engage in it. Like, hello? Like skydiving. I don't know the exact percentage, but I'm sure that, you know, let's Google it. Why should I Google how many people, what percentage of people die from skydiving? Like, I'm sure it's got to be low, right? Percentage of people skydive. With modern equipment and training methods, Fatalities occur in less than 1 per 100,000 cases, and serious injury requiring hospitalization is less than 2 per 10,000 cases. Like, the chances of me dying from skydiving, really quite low, but I'm not gonna skydive because the chances are not zero. Power to ya. If skydiving is your gig, go for it. I love that for you. You would not catch me dead. Yes, the Emperor's dead. That means... Sorry, I was talking about skydiving. Not at all on topic. I'm so sorry. So the Emperor's dead, and that means that Kai is the, acting emperor until his coronation. He goes to a meeting with all the representatives of all of the Earthen Union, and everyone is like, girl, I hate to say it, you have to do the marriage alliance. We are struggling here. And Kai is like, no, thank you. And then we learn that Lavanna has been creating an army of genetically mutated men. Well, they don't know this yet, but she mixed the DNA, or she genetically mutated these men to be like wolves. So they're like wolf mutant soldiers, and they look scary as fuck. This is really bad news bears for everyone on Earth. And the reason that they learned this is because they took satellite images of Luna. These wolf men were standing in formation in a very visible place. So it's not like they just happened upon these pictures. No, this is an active threat. Cinder goes to the quarantine to try to save Peony, but she is too late. And Peony dies in her arms. She gives the cure to some other kid. We meet him earlier in the book. He's the son of the baker, and the baker is the woman who caught the plague at the beginning, and her whole shop got burned down, and he has a miraculous recovery. While she is in the quarantine facility, Cinder sees the med robots trying to take Peony's ID chip, and so she steals it from them, and she fights one of the med droids, and so she hides Peony's ID chip in a compartment in her leg. When Cinder gets home, Audrey is livid, so in retaliation she took apart Aiko and sold her for parts. Nobody wanted her fucky ass personality chip, so Cinder got to keep that, and she also kept it in the compartment in her leg. Cinder is having just an absolute terrible time. On the night of the ball, she is going to get out of town in the car, which where are you gonna get gas though? There are no gas stations. Anyway, Kai comes back to see Cinder at the market, and he asks one more time if she will go to the ball with him, and she's like, no, sorry, and he gives her these white silk gloves just in case she changes her mind. Pearl comes to the booth, and she sees these fancy gloves, and she's like, ugh, you think that the prince could love you? Fuck off. And she throws the fancy gloves to the ground, and now they're all stained and dirty, and they've got oil stains in them, which is oh, sad face. So Cinder is packing up her car to escape, and her iPad starts going wonk. And turns out the lunar communication chip that was in Nancy, she connected it to her iPad to try to see what would happen. And now some rando lunar girl is trying to FaceTime her. Except for she's not rando. She works for the thaumaturge Sybil Mira, who is the Queen's head thaumaturge, which is just her main guy. And the girl is she knows everything that the android knew, everything she'd been researching. She knows that Princess Celine is alive and that Emperor Kai was searching for her. She knows that the Emperor wanted to find the princess and instate her as the true lunar queen. Tonight at the ball, Kai is going to announce his intention to marry. Lavanna knew he'd been searching for Princess Celine. She would kill him. She would take over the Commonwealth. She would wage war on the whole planet. So Cinder is God, now I gotta do something. So she gets into her raggedy ass trash dress, which I did not explain. When Peony caught the plague, all of her belongings had to be thrown away because they were, plagueified. Peony already had this dress because she was going to go to the ball. Aiko felt bad about throwing it away, so she saved it. Cinder gets into Peony's old garbage trash dress. She puts on those greasy ass gloves, and she doesn't attach her foot all the way for some reason. And she drives to the ball to stop Kai and Lavanna from getting married. She crashes this ball. And it's a super fancy ball, and she is wearing a garbage dress, and her hair is crazy, and her foot doesn't work, and she's wearing grease stained gloves. But she's announced as the prince's personal guest because he invited her, and he put her on the list just in case she changed her mind and showed up. The guy at the door announces her over the freaking loudspeaker. Everyone knows she's here. All hope of being sneaky gone. And everyone is staring at her, and need I remind you, she looks like a hot mess at this current point in time. So she stumbles her way down the stairs, and Pearl and Audrey are like, what the fuck are you doing? Girl, go home before we actually murder you for embarrassing us in front of all these important people. And then Kai is like, let's dance. Let's dance! So they dance. This is major drama because, again, I cannot emphasize this enough. She looked like she stepped out of a literal sewer. Not like a fancy sewer like in Flushed Away. A poopy sewer. And Kai is dancing with her. So Kai's advisor, whose name is Torin, he's chill. He comes to Kai and he's like, all right, we have to make your announcement now. And Cinder's like, no, wait. And she kisses him. Right at that moment, Lavanna pulls up and she is like, it appears that my betrothed has fallen in love with an insignificant shell. Am I mistaken? That's enough, said Kai. I don't care where she was born. Cinder is a citizen of the Commonwealth. I will not have her arrested. Slay, human rights, hashtag love is love.
And love is love is love is love is love is love is love is.
Lavanna is like, all right, well, let's do a trade. If we get married, I'll let you let her free. But if not, she's gonna go to a lunar prison. And Kai's like, that is a really tough choice. You're putting me in a real pickle here. But no, I'm not gonna marry you. Sorry. He didn't want to marry her anyway. His shoulders became rigid. But it is not the way that I will have the Commonwealth governed. We must have peace, but not at the expense of freedom. I will not marry you. Cinder's computer brain does something super silly. She sees under Lavanna's glamour. Shocker, she's like pretty average, actually. She shut her eyes, sure she was imagining things, then opened them again. The diagram realigned, lines pinpointing the exact angles of Lavanna's face, coordinates showing the placement of her eyes, the length of her nose, the width of her brow. A perfect illustration overlaid the perfect woman, and they were not the same. Her scanner was seeing beyond the illusion, unscathed by the lunar glamour. It knew where the true boundaries of the queen's face were, the imperfections, the inconsistencies. It really is an illusion. You're not beautiful. Obviously, because Lavanna values beauty over anything in the whole wide world. That is pretty much the meanest thing she could have said to her. So she tries to brainwash Cinder into making her shoot herself. Cinder overrides it with her cyborg brain. Instead, she shoots a chandelier. Chaos ensues. As Cinder's running away, her whole foot snaps off and is just sitting there on the steps of the palace. It's a pretty subtle reference. I don't know if you picked up on it the first time. So somewhere in there, Cinder accidentally glamored hard and she made herself gorgeous. And she didn't know she was doing it. It was kind of like an innate thing. When Kai sees Cinder sitting on the stairs without a foot on and he's like, was it all in my head? A lunar trick? Her stomach twisted. No, she shook her head fervently. How to explain that she hadn't had the gift before, that she couldn't have used it against him? I would never lie. The words faded. She had lied, and he knew everything about her had been a lie. When I tell you, middle school me, this shattered my heart and my soul. I was like, no, bro, it's true love. So Lavanna is like, put her in jail, please, and thank you. And she will stand trial on Luna. And Kai is like, do whatever the fuck you want. I don't like her anymore. Cut to, Cinder is in her jail cell, and Dr. Erland comes in and is like, girlie, you gotta escape. I am not suggesting you should try to escape. I'm saying you must escape, and you must do it soon, for your chances of survival will drop drastically once Lavanna comes for you. Cinder's like, why do you care so much? He gives her a fancy new hand with tranquilizer I can't talk today. He gives her a fancy new hand with tranquilizer darts and a bunch of other gadgets in her hands and a new foot and everything. She's like, why do you give a fuck? Then he drops the craziest truth bomb of the freaking century. He's like, my dear girl, you are Princess Celine. He was like, I ran your test through Ancestry.com. I found your aunt. And guess who the freaking aunt is? That is right. Queen Lavanna of Luna. He's like, I set up the whole cyborg draft to find you. Oh my god, the ethics of that, crazy. You're just gonna kill a bunch of people in hopes of finding one person. There have got to be better ways. And so he's like, here's the plan. Escape from prison, meet me in Africa, dethrone Queen Lavanna and become the true lunar queen. Simple as that. Completely ignoring the fact that Africa is a whole continent. Where in Africa do you want me to go, babe? He's like, you are the only one who can dethrone Queen Lavanna. That is how book 1 ends. Alrighty, I took a break, I had some lunch, and now it is time for book 2, Scarlet. So this is when the multiple POVs start, and I know that I'm usually a hater of this, but I think that this book handles it really well, so just bear with me, okay? We open in a small town in France. Our new main character is Scarlet. Her grandmother disappeared recently, and the police are like, she's crazy and old, so she probably ran away on purpose, and Scarlet is like, absolutely not, my grandmother would never do that. And the police are like, sometimes old people run away. This isn't sitting very well with Scarlet because she swears up and down that her grandmother would never ever just like up and leave, especially without Scarlet. Like they're really, really close. None of the farmhands had seen her go. None of the worker androids had recorded anything suspicious. Her port screen had been left behind, though it offered no clues in its stored comms, calendar, or net history. But that wasn't the worst of it. Not the abandoned port screen or the unmade cake. Scarlet had also found her grandmother's ID chip. So Scarlet and her grandma work and live on this farm, and they supply like fruits and vegetables to a local tavern. And Scarlet's job is to deliver the fresh produce. On this specific delivery, Scarlet meets this guy in this tavern, and he's big and scary and imposing, and he's also never tried tomatoes before. She gives him a tomato, and he's like, whoa, what the fuck is this? This is the best thing I've ever tasted in my entire life. And he also has a strange looking tattoo, and it says LSOP 962. Okay, this has to stop. Is there a way to make my computer stop falling asleep? General? You know, Google probably has the answer. Right click on the start button. Where's the start button? No, not Windows 10. Oh, I forgot what I was talking about because I got distracted. So Scarlet has 3 main character traits, and they are that she has red hair, she always carries a gun with her, and she's going through like a lot emotionally right now, you know, on account of her grandma is disappearing. So she punches a guy at the tavern because he says that her grandma is crazy. The big scary guy breaks up the fight, and he tells the owner to apologize to Scarlet. He also almost kills the owner. Girl, run away. Scarlet goes back to the farm, and she's like, whoa, that was weird. The big scary guy shows up, and he's like, hi, my name is Wolf. I really liked your tomatoes. Can I have a job on your farm? She's like, no. And he's like, oh, okay, well, thought I'd ask. And he leaves. A few days later, Scarlet is unpacking her ship from that day. There's some guy rifling through her grandma's old military stuff. Oh, yeah, so her grandma is ex-military, and there's this rando guy like rifling through all of her things, and turns out this rando guy is Scarlet's dad. Now, Scarlet and her dad do not have a very good relationship. They are not besties. They do not like each other. And this rando guy, her dad, he's not a rando guy, he's her dad. He has been tortured. My fucking camera's about to die. Are you shitting my dick? Her dad is literally being tortured. The skin was covered in burn marks, each one a perfect circle and placed in a neat, perfect row upon row upon row, circling his forearm from wrist to elbow, some shining with wrinkled scar tissue, others blackened and blistering, and on his wrist, a scab where his ID chip had once been implanted. He keeps saying to her, they kidnapped him and that they want information about Scarlet's grandma. Scarlet is like, who are they? I don't know who you're talking about. And he's like, I don't know who they were, but one of them had a tattoo on his arm that had a bunch of letters and numbers. Scarlet is like, oh my God, that guy from the tavern who wanted a job on my farm, he had a tattoo on his arm with a bunch of letters and numbers. He definitely knows where my grandma is. Alrighty, we're back. The camera is slightly more charged. Scarlet is like, Wolf definitely knows where my grandma went. I have to go interrogate him. So she goes to this abandoned farm where they have like Fight Club to confront Wolf. I have so many questions. But mainly, girl, what is the plan? What are you thinking? She didn't even take a moment to like collect her thoughts or like come up with a plan of any sort. She just goes to Fight Club as like a small, I think she's like 16 or 17, a young girl. Frightening. Cut to Cinder. She is breaking out of jail, baby. Let's go. So she drops into the cell and she thinks it's supposed to be empty, but turns out there's a guy in there. And his name is Carswell Thorne. He's like a petty criminal. He like steals some things and he like absconded from the American military. And overall, just like pretty mediocre guy. He's not like inherently evil, but he's also like not a great dude. She's like, you weren't supposed to be in here. And he's like, yeah, well, I got put in solitary confinement because I started a riot over soap. And then she's like, okay, shut up. I'm breaking out. And he's like, Slay, I'm coming with you. She's like, I don't think so. And he's like, well, I have a spaceship. And she's like, oh, okay, Slay, yeah, you're coming with me. So they break out of the prison and they crawl through the sewers until they get to where Thorne's spaceship lives. It's called the Rampion, and he stole it from the American military, so it doesn't have any tracking equipment on it because he stripped all that when he stole it. Then Thorne sees on the news that there's like an escaped lunar cyborg convict and it's super dangerous. And he's like, wait a damn minute, that's you. You're the dangerous lunar cyborg convict. And she's like, yeah, I am. I can't get into it right now because now you're in this now. So we gotta go. And he's like, oh, okay, because I don't want to get caught. So they get into the ship. It's fully not working. Like, it's just not. There are guards breaking down the door to the storage unit where this ship is held. Cinder's like, we have to go right now. So she connects her brain via like a physical wire. She like plugs a wire into her brain, connects herself to the ship. She hacks the mainframe and she like uses her own computer brain to like run diagnostics while Thorne takes off. It drains her power and so she like kind of passes out, but then she comes back. It's fine. Back to Scarlet. She is on this abandoned farm and she's like, what the hell, man? You kidnapped my family. Like, can you please explain yourself? Thorn is like, I had nothing to do with it. And she's like, yeah, my dad told me that someone with your tattoo kidnapped my grandma and him. So like, fucking explain yourself. He's like, yeah, a tattoo like mine doesn't mean it was mine. Scarlet was like, why is he speaking in riddles? What's going on? It's Wolf's turn to fight because it's literally Fight Club. And he goes full on beast mode and like really scares Scarlet. And then he like runs away into the night. So the next day, Scarlet is trying to do research on the tattoo and she's Googling like gangs with these types of tattoos. She's thinking maybe it's like a gang affiliation or something. Nothing is coming up. So she starts getting really desperate. So she starts Googling wolves. And as she's like Googling wolves, Wolf pulls up and he's like, I want to help you figure out what happened to your grandma and your dad. We get a bit of an info dump about like the gang he used to be a part of. Loyal soldier to the Order of the Pack, he said. Member 962. That's what his LSOP 962 tattoo means. A gang, more commonly referred to as the Wolves. They like to call themselves vigilantes and rebels and harbingers of change, but they're not much better than criminals. And he's like, I can help you get to their headquarters, which is probably where they're keeping her, but it's in Paris, so we have to go on a little adventure to Paris. So that's what they're doing. Back to Cinder. She puts Aiko's personality chip into the Rampion, so it could be their like AI control system. This is pretty much the crew we have for this book. We have Cinder, Thorn, and Aiko running away from the feds, and then we have Scarlet and Wolf on their little Parisian adventure. So Scarlet and Wolf are on the train to Paris. Scarlet goes up to the dining car and she's doing a little bit of Googling again about wolves. She's really trying to figure out what's up with the gang. And this guy comes up to her and he's like, wow, that's a really specific Google search. What's going on? If this were me, I would be so goddamn embarrassed. She was Googling like self-important wolf-like people. Oh my God, that's gotta be some furry shit. Am I wrong? I would be so embarrassed though. If someone looked over my shoulder and that's what I was Googling and they were like, hey, that's a weird thing to be Googling. Oh my God, I would jump off the train because that's crazy. Anyway, this guy's name is Ran and he starts off like pretty normal and then he starts asking some really strange questions. He's like, are you traveling alone? Where are you going? He also has these like really long, nasty nails, just like talon-like nails. Disgusting. And so she gets like a little spooked and she goes back to where her and Wolf are staying. Wolf is like, who the fuck did you talk to out there? You smell weird. Scarlet is like, that is quite literally none of your business, but what do you mean I smell weird? And he's like, well, you smell like someone. And she's like, well, he wasn't really wearing cologne, so I don't know what he's talking about. Anyway, there's a train delay because someone on the train got the plague, and so they were all going to get tested, and then they would have to go back to like the original spot that they were coming from. Instead of like waiting for that to happen, Wolf and Scarlet grab all their things and they jump off the train, and they end up like walking along the train tracks, and then they're gonna like jump on the next train. So they're walking around the train tracks and they're flirting a little bit, and then guess who shows up? Literally Ran, the guy from the train. He has the same tattoo as Wolf, which means he's a member of the gang. LSOP 1126 was tattooed across the muscle of his forearm. Scarlet, this is Ran Kessley, a loyal soldier to the Order of the Pack. Don't worry, he's only an Omega. I have to say something. I understand the need to have Wolf be the animal because, first of all, this book is based off of Little Red Riding Hood. In Little Red Riding Hood, there is a wolf. Makes sense. And also, like, they're like a cool, scary animal to have your main character be based off of. However, the way all these like wolf terms are just like sprinkled in throughout this book, they're like, you're my alpha. I'm like, shut up. Ooh, I hate it. And like, yeah, this book, when was this book written? It's like 2015, 2016. Oh, this is 2013. I'm not entrenched in like internet culture, which might be shocking. I don't think that like the alpha thing was as big in 2013. Don't correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to know. But like, again, in 2024, when he's like, don't worry, he's just an Omega, I'm an alpha. What? Anyway, turns out this guy, Ran Kessley, is also Wolf's brother. And he's also a member of the gang. He and Wolf start to get into a fight, and it literally seems like Wolf is going to kill Ran. She's like, no, you can't kill him. This guy has information about my grandmother. She shoots Wolf. She shoots him. And then Ran runs away because he got spooked. Wolf tells Scarlet that he's only been out of the gang for like 3 weeks. He was an alpha. And he tells her that the goal of the gang is to find the lost princess Celine. And Scarlet is like, my guy, my grandma is literally just a farmer. Like, why would you kidnap her? She has nothing to tell you. But turns out she like actually definitely does have some information about this. Oh, cause sorry, not to bury the lead there. Her grandma is Michelle Benoit. Remember when Nancy was like spouting all that information about like the lost princess princess. She was part of the only diplomatic mission to be sent from Earth to Luna in the last 50 years. She was the pilot that brought the Earthen officials. The visit lasted almost 2 weeks, so she must have had some interaction with Lunars. He frowned. She never told you any of this? No, she never told me any of this. When was this? Wolf looked away, and she could see his hesitation. Wolf, when was this? He gulped. 40 years ago, he said, sorry, this is ridiculous. 40 years ago, he said, his tone going quiet again. 9 months before your father was born. I love her so much. She went into space and slept around and became with child. And that child is Scarlet's dad. So Scarlet is like, how does that work? So if her dad is half lunar and he marries an earthen, she's a quarter lunar, I think. Scarlet's grandma was deeply part of some things that were going on, and so that is why Wolf's gang kidnapped her. After a while, I think another train comes and they jump on. They also almost kiss, but then Wolf is like, no, we can't. The shocked horror had left him, replaced with the heat and longing and uncertainty and fear, so much fear, but she didn't think it had anything to do with her nearly falling off the train. Lips tingling, she arched her neck toward him, but then he was pulling away from her, the space between them filling with harsh, cold wind. Girl, you almost fell off a train. Why are you trying to kiss him? Use your brain, or just like common sense. Also, he is very recently part of a gang that kidnapped your grandma. They sneak into like the cargo hold of the train. They actually do kiss, like they end up kissing, whatever. Back to Cinder. Cinder and Thorn are in the Rampion, and Thorn is like, what's the vibe? Where are we going? And Cinder is like, we're going to France because I need to find this lady called Michelle Benoit, which is, if we remember, Scarlet's grandma. So Thorn is doing all this research, and he figures out that Michelle has a teenage granddaughter, Scarlet, and Scarlet doesn't have any birth records, and he's like, this is probably the lost lunar princess. And Cinder is like, yes, you're right, it's probably her. And so she doesn't tell him the truth. Scarlet and Wolf end up in Paris. Suddenly Wolf is like, please don't do this. This is a really bad idea. I don't think I really thought this through. You cannot go to their headquarters. They will kill you. She's like, I have to. And so they're walking through the streets of Paris, and Wolf keeps on being like, that's a member of the gang. That's a member of the gang. They're everywhere. And they finally get to the headquarters, which is this old abandoned opera house. So they walk right in, and right as they're walking in, Scarlet gets an email that her dad was found dead. How do you... Thaumaturge? That feels right in my heart, but I feel like I'm gonna get it wrong. So how do you pronounce it? Thaumaturge?
Thaumaturgy.
Thaumaturge?
Thaumaturgy.
Thaumaturgy?
Thaumaturgy.
Thaumaturgy. Thaumaturge? I'm gonna go with thaumaturge. They're at the opera house. A lunar thaumaturge, which again, from the first book, remember, is like the head personal, like a military general, I think, of the lunar military. Okay, so this lunar thaumaturge comes out and he's like, hey, Alpha Kesley, good to see you again. Thank you so much for bringing this girl in. He's like, you're so welcome. I'm sure she completely trusted me and she has nothing else to say. She told me everything. Scarlet is really sad. She's like, shit, I've been betrayed. He gained my trust, and now he's gonna probably kill me. Scarlet set her jaw. Loyal soldier to the order of the pack? She saw the pain in his gulp. No, lunar special operative. She's kind of like, well, I really walked right into that one, because she trusted him. So Scarlet gets taken to an old dressing room, which is like her prison cell now, and then they take her to her grandma. And her grandma's like, you shouldn't have come. Scarlet is like, what do they want from you? Her grandma took a slow breath. They want to know about Princess Celine. So her grandma's like, I can't be controlled, but you can be controlled. What's that about? We don't know. And then her grandma morphs in to Ran frickin' Kesley. He had been glamoring her to get information out of her. That's cold. That's real mean. Cinder and Thorn make it to Scarlet's farm, and Cinder is like, well, I feel like I remember the spaceship hangar. So they're like looking around it, and Cinder's like, yeah, I know exactly where we're going. They find a secret room. Crouching in front of the cabinet, she slid her hand against the back corner until it brushed against the handle she'd known would be there. It would never be noticed unless a person knew to look. And she knew, because she'd been there 5 years ago in a state of drugged-up delirium that she'd always mistaken for a dream. She had merged in this spot. They find this hidden room. In the room, there is a suspended animation tank, which is just like a tank full of jelly that helps slow down your body's processes while you're healing from like an illness or an injury. And it's where Cinder had been kept when she was getting cyborgified. It also shows the last operation that took place in the room. It was done on Michelle Benoit. Patient Michelle Benoit Benoit, Operation Spinal and Nervous System Bioelectricity Security Lock, Prototype 4.6, status complete. This is the reason why Michelle Benoit can't get brainwashed. She has one of the bioelectricity locks. Now, this is the same bioelectricity lock that Cinder has, or had before Dr. Erland broke it with his freaky chiropractic behavior. Cinder and Thorn are in this little French town. Also, their ship is completely broken. They go to like a parts store in town to grab some spare parts to fix their ship. They get a comm from Aiko that the police are there. So Cinder starts to brainwash the cops. Then some scary wolf mutants pull up. So Cinder ends up mind controlling a cop and using him as a human shield, and they end up getting away. Turns out that the human cops had been using Peony's ID chip that Cinder had taken to track the ship. And the lunar special operatives were using a lunar tracking device that had been put on the ship. So they destroyed both of those. Back to Scarlet. She's in the dressing room. Wolf comes in and kisses her. He has like an ID chip in his mouth, and when he kisses, he like into her mouth, the ID chip. You gotta do what you gotta do, I guess. He's an ally to Scarlet, but he's pretending not to be so that he doesn't get killed. Scarlet uses the chip to get out of her cell. She sees her real grandma and she's like, oh my god, I'm going to save you. And her grandma's like, don't save me. Someone must tell the girl who she is. Someone must find her. You must find her. That is so brutal. She's like, hi, I'm dying. Go save the world. No extra context, which is like rough. Scarlet doesn't care. She's like, I just want my grandma to survive. Scarlet is like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to save you. And then Rand shows up. The way I am so sick of this man. Like, literally, shut up and leave. He ends up killing her grandma. Scarlet runs away and she's about to be caught. And then Wolf pulls up. Wolf kills Rand, I think. And then the thaumaturge comes and tries to control Wolf. And Scarlet is like, you won't hurt me. Delusional behavior. He growled and lowered his nose to her neck, sniffing. I know you don't want to hurt me, Wolf. His nose bumped against her jaw. His breath caressed her collarbone. You helped me. You rescued me. You protected me from Rand. It wasn't so that you could kill me now. She's delusional. She's a crazy bitch. That is insane. She's about to be killed and she's like, don't kill me. We're in love. Hello? Are you dumb? And he's also literally being controlled by someone else. He tries to fight the brainwashing. He's like literally about to kill her. Like he's coming in to like rip out her throat. And then he passes out. Plot twist. Cinder and Thorn to the rescue. So Cinder shot him with one of her tranquilizer darts in her hand. And Cinder is like, hi Scarlet, I'm Cinder. Please, I need to talk to your grandma. Scarlet is like, I really wish you could, but she's dead. And Cinder is like, fuck, okay. But let's go because you're about to be killed by a mutant wolf soldier. And Scarlet's like, actually no, that's the love of my life. Scarlet won't go with them unless they also take Wolf. So they end up taking him with them, even though all Cinder knows is that he's probably like a murderous wolf mutant. Like that is all the information she has to this point, but she's like, fucking sure, I guess. If it'll get you into the spaceship, we can bring the crazy wolf soldier. Scarlet gets into the ship and starts to get ready for takeoff, but Thorn and Wolf and Cinder are still outside and they're surrounded by lunar special ops. There is a crazy fight. Aiko comes to the rescue. Aiko saves the day. Scarlet, who, remember, always carries a gun with her, shoots the thaumaturge, and then they take Wool and they take off. Queen Lavanna launched a full-scale attack with her special operatives. This attack was so unprecedented, so abnormal. These men move fast, rarely stay on a single block for more than a few minutes, just enough time to kill anyone within reach before moving on to another area of the city. So in order to stop this full-on war that's happening, Kai says yes to the marriage proposal with Lavanna. In theory, maybe sounds like a good idea because she will say yes to a ceasefire of this crazy attack. However, this is catastrophically bad because once Queen Lavanna is the Empress, she will be able to control all of Earth. The wedding has been scheduled for the next full moon, the 25th day of September, to be followed immediately by Queen Lavanna's coronation as Empress of the Eastern Commonwealth. The removal of all lunar soldiers from earthen soil will begin the following day. Wolf is like, even the most talented of thaumaturges can only control a dozen special operatives, 15 at most. And this is after years of genetic modifications and training. And yet you managed to take one away from its master on your first attempt. I would not have thought it before, but now I think Her Majesty might actually have cause to be afraid of you, Princess. Oh, yeah. I mean, somewhere along the way, I guess Cinder tells Thorn and, like, everyone that she's the real Princess Selena. Scarlet and Wolf start to, like, tentatively hang out, talk. Even though Scarlet is, like, literally in mourning and Wolf almost literally murdered her, I simply couldn't be in love with someone who tried to kill me. Maybe that's a hot take. You said they control when your animal instincts overpower your own thoughts, right? But fighting and hunting aren't the only instincts wolves have. Aren't wolves monogamous, for starters? And isn't the alpha male the one who's responsible for protecting everyone? Not only the pack, but his mate too. Moral of the story is they are in love. The like wolf terminology, not even gonna lie, making me a little queasy. His lips twitched, his nervousness beginning to ease away, though his hands stayed tense over hers. Alpha female, he murmured. No, stop it, stop. I can't even. Alpha female, he murmured. I sort of like that. Beaming, Scarlet gave a mild shrug. It could grow on me too. That's furry shit. This is furry shit. The book ends with Cinder being like, well, shit, I guess I gotta save the world. I'm going to find Dr. Erland, and he's going to teach me how to win against her. Then I'm going to track down the girl who programmed this chip, and she's going to tell me everything she knows about Luna and its security and all the Queen's secrets. And then I am going to stop hiding. And that is the end of book 2. Alrighty, book 3. Halfway through, how are we feeling? The last 2 books are long. This book is like 600 pages. Winter, the last book, 800 pages. I'm gonna be here forever. I started this at 11. It is now 4 p.m. Let's get cracking. Book 3 is Cress. This book takes place on the continent of Africa. We've already talked about how much that doesn't make sense, so I'm not gonna belabor the point. If ever I'm talking about the country of Africa and you're like, is she stupid? No, I'm not stupid. The books are stupid. I'm smart. Stop. Alrighty, let's get going. We open with Cress in her satellite. So Cress is a lunar shell. She doesn't have any lunar power, but she also can't be controlled. Everyone who lives on Luna is told that if you're born a shell, you get taken and killed, but that's not actually true. You don't get taken and killed, but it's a secret. We'll figure out what they actually do with the lunar shells later. But Cress is special. She's a computer whiz. When she was old enough to like be good at computers, she was taken up to a satellite. She basically like cloaks lunar ships as they're going into Earth and like sneaks lunars into Earth. And she also like does surveillance on Earth. And she's like the IT guy for thaumaturge Sybil Mira. Her newest task has been to find Cinder. Guess what? She actually found her immediately because she's just like amazing at technology. However, she has been cloaking their ships so that nobody can find them. So when they're in space, they are essentially invisible. Also, Cress has just like the biggest crush on Thorn. She's also like a shut-in. She thinks that he is like a hero, like the most heroic person ever. Obviously, she hacked into his like criminal history, but for every quote unquote bad thing that he did, he had like an excuse. And she's like, he actually was doing a lot of good, actually. One situation after another was brought to Cress's attention. Theft, violence, trespassing, school suspensions, police reprimands. Yet, Carswell Thorn, when given a chance to explain, always had a reason. A good reason. A heart-stopping, pulse-racing, awe-inspiring reason. Babe, he's lying. I hate to tell you this. He is, in fact, full of shit. Remember how Kai and Lavanna are planning on getting married? Well, Cinder has a plan to stop it. The rough plan was to cause a distraction on the day of the wedding that would allow them to sneak into the palace during the ceremony and announce to the world that Cinder was truly the lost Princess Celine. Then, with all the world's media watching, Cinder would demand that Lavanna relinquish the crown to her, ending both the wedding and her rule in one fell swoop. I love the enthusiasm of this. This is not a plan. There is no plan. Like, is the plan in the room with us? Be so honest. So honestly, how does she expect this to go? She's gonna pull up, she's gonna be like, I am in fact the lost princess, and you, my murderous dictator aunt, you will turn your queendom over to me. Hello? First of all, she's 16. She is a 16-year-old girl. No one's gonna hand her a country, okay? I respect young people, and I think that young people actually can do a lot more than they're often given credit for. However, I don't think I would trust like a 16-year-old revolutionary. Like, your brain's not done cooking. I would not have trusted myself at 16 to lead a country. I wouldn't even trust myself now to lead a country. So Cress FaceTimes the Rampion. She tells him that she has a bunch of evidence, photos and videos about what's been going on, that the Queen has been full on breaching a lot of international laws. Cinder and her crew is like, great, can you send that to us? Cress is like, I would love to, except for if these got out, the Queen would know that it was me and I would be killed. And so they're like, all right, well, what if we rescue you? What could go wrong? What could go wrong? I'm on a satellite. I can give you my coordinates, and I checked weeks ago if your Rampion has a compatible docking gear, and it does. Or at least the pod ship that comes standard with it does. You still have your pod ships, right? They're going up to her satellite. They are going to save Cress. Remember Dr. Erland. I'll give you a quick recap because he's very important in this book and he did not come up at all in the last book. So in case you checked out between the first book and now, quick little recap. He was the doctor who started the cyborg draft to find Cinder. He told her that she's Princess Celine. Turns out he also used to be a very important doctor on Luna, and he invented the lunar wolf mutants. But right now, he's in a small town in the country of Africa, and he is encouraging human trafficking. It's very sketchy. He basically is like, if anyone brings him lunar shells, he will pay them a lot of money. That's good. But we also learn now that the plague is starting to mutate. Now it is able to infect lunars, and the lunar plague works a lot faster than the normal person plague. Back to Cress in her satellite, the Rampion is coming to save her, and they're about an hour away when Sybil, who is the head thaumaturge that Cress works for, shows up, and she's like, why haven't you found anything yet? This part is so stressful. I genuinely think that this book in particular is like really well written. Girl, I was stressed. Message received from mechanic. ETA 41 minutes. Need final coordinates. What is this? Sybil said, nearing the screen. Is it her? Sybil hissed. Have you been lying to me? You better not even think to lie to me, Crescent. How long have you been in communication with her? Sybil knows that Cinder is coming, and she's like, this is the perfect opportunity to capture her. The pod ship docks, and Thorn goes in to save Cress. Turns out it is actually Sybil using her mind control magic to look like Cress. Sybil traps Thorn and Cress in the satellite, cuts the power to it, sends it plummeting to the earth to kill them, obviously. Then she takes her head guard, who is also her personal pilot. They pretend to be Thorn and Cress to trick Cinder into letting them into her ship. Big ol' fight ensues. Sybil's head guard literally shoots her, and Cinder shoots Wolf. She's trying to shoot the thaumaturge, but the thaumaturge does not feel like a real word. The thaumaturge uses Wolf as a human shield, and so Cinder accidentally shoots him instead, which, if we're counting, he's been shot twice by allies. 3 times, actually. Cinder has shot him twice. Scarlet shot him once. Wolf cannot catch a break. Like, he keeps getting shot. Sybil kidnaps Scarlet. Cinder and the besties end up with the Lunar Guard. That was a lot of information. Let's recap, because things are catastrophically bad right now. Scarlet has been taken by the head thaumaturge and is presumably going to be tortured for information and then killed. Super great, super fun. Thorn and Cress are hurtling towards Earth in a satellite with no way to stop it, and they're basically toast. Cinder literally shot Wolf, and he is currently bleeding out, and also he's going to have just like an actual conniption when he learns that the love of his life, in his words, alpha female, is going to be tortured and killed. And they now have a lunar guard with them who's probably going to betray them at some point. His name is Jason. That's like a pretty normal name. No, it's spelled Jacin. Jason. So they're on the ship trying to save Wolf from bleeding out and dying, and Jason is actually being really helpful. Also, he shot Sybil, so like no one really knows what his vibes are right now. And then he drops just like the craziest tidbit. His lips twitched like she'd made a joke, but his eyes were quick to harden. I serve my princess, no one else. The floor dropped from beneath her. The princess. His princess. He knew. For some reason, he knew about Princess Celine. We are like tentatively trusting Jason. They decide to go to Africa to find Dr. Erland and get him to help them because things are going really badly for them. Smash cut to Thorn and Cress. The satellite crash landed in the middle of the Sahara Desert. Cress was able to deploy a parachute. They have no way to contact anybody. Also, during the crash, Thorn hit his head really... My sister called to ask how much baking soda we had, and that was urgent. Thorn hit his head during the crash. He's blind. Completely blind. I cannot emphasize enough how bad the situation is for them. Thorn is 100% blind. Cress has never left her satellite before, and she hasn't walked more than like around the perimeter of her space. So they are both woefully ill-equipped to trek across the Sahara Desert, and they have no way to call for help. They do what any rational person would do in this situation. They pack up as many supplies as they can find in the satellite, and they just like start walking in a direction. Cress does use her knowledge of the stars to deduce that they are in northern Africa, which happens to be the same sort of general area that Cinder's whole crew are heading to. So like they will probably reunite eventually, but each people independently don't know that. Cinder, who is absolutely in desperate straits right now, is like, all right, besties, we're going to Africa. So they go to Farafra, which is like a small oasis town in northern Africa. It's a real life place. It's in Egypt. And Dr. Erland is like, don't worry, y'all. I I can definitely help you. So it turns out this town and most of Africa has a large population of lunar immigrants. In Africa, lunars and earthens coexist really, really well. Something like 15% of the population is lunar, which is like a big percentage. Also, Africa is where the plague started because shells came down from Luna carrying the plague. I'm gonna be so honest with you, I do have a problem with that. The fact that the plague started out in Africa doesn't super sit well with me. It really feels like it plays into the stereotype that Africa is diseased and dirty, and that is a really, really harmful stereotype. I went down a bit of a rabbit hole while I was writing this script. I'll link some of these in the description if you would like to peruse. But there is a long history of African countries being depicted in media as places where diseases start. Marissa Meyer made up this whole shebang. Great, good for her. I love that journey for her. She could have chosen the plague to have started anywhere, and she chose Africa. Make it an Australian plague. There's so much weird shit going on in Australia. Anyway, so Cinder goes to Dr. Erland and she tells him all about her plan, and he's like, hey, bestie, I hate to break it to you. This is barely a plan. This is a terrible, terrible plan. And she's like, well, what do you think I should do? He's like, well, first of all, you have to go to Luna. And she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, because the people of Luna don't really care what Earthens think. So if you go stop the wedding and you're like, people of Earth, I'm the true queen of Luna. People on Earth aren't going to give a fuck. People on Luna, not going to give a fuck. Dr. Erland is like, you have to go to Luna, start a revolution and claim the crown. And Cinder's like, well, I don't love that idea, but like, sure, if that's what you think is best, whatever. Also, all the lunars in Africa, or at least all the lunars in Africa that Cinder has direct interaction with, are really pro her because Dr. Erland told them that she was planning on not just overthrowing Lavanna, he told them that Cinder was going to assassinate Queen Lavanna and become the next queen. So they're like, yeah, kill her, let's go. Here's the thing though, is that when Cress's satellite crashed down onto Earth, all of the lunar ships that she had been cloaking automatically popped up on all of the Earthen's radars. The Earthen leaders, I guess, they took this as like a show of hostility from Luna, which they were all really confused by because Kai said yes to the marriage proposal, the marriage is happening, like Lavanna is getting everything that she wants. They're like, why is she threatening us? She's not. It was a bit of an oversight, but like, still, they're like, this is a threat. Also, Kai's android, Nancy, remember her? She goes up to him and she's like, I think that I found Princess Celine. And he's like, all right, please tell me about this. The android is like, well, there's this girl from France who does not have birth records until she's about 11 years old, which is the same age that Selena was when she died, and her name is Scarlet Benoit. Kai is like, wait a second, Cinder and her crew were in France. That's definitely Princess Celine because Cinder found her. He's wrong, but like, he's got the right idea. So Cress and Thorn have been walking for this whole time. They've been walking for a hot minute. They run into a caravan. Thorn is like improv king. He said yes, and he said, I'm doing character work and scene objective. Fuck yeah, let's go. And he's like, can you please help us? My wife and I, this is my wife, we were on our honeymoon. A bunch of thieves stole all of our shit and attacked us. And the caravan people were like, yeah, sure, like we'll help you. You seem nice. And so the caravan people take them in and feed them and like help them rest and give them water, and they're like, you can come along with us until our next stop, and then you can like call whoever you need to call. This is another thing, is that this caravan what is that sound? What is that sound? We don't have downstairs neighbors right now. Anyway, this caravan, it's a ghost. We're definitely haunted. Whatever. So this caravan still uses camels. Like, it's fine, but I'm just confused by it because this is set in the way future. Like, there's flying cars and shit. They never installed roads. They never got cars. They never figured out a better way than camels to get from point A to point B in the desert. I'm surprised that in this, like, super globalized future, they didn't put magnet roads. I'm not mad. I'm just confused. Anyway, we know how much I love a fake married into real lovers trope. That is my jam. Thorn and Cress are having, like, a heart-to-heart, and she's like, I know know you. Like, I know you pretend to be all immoral and selfish, but you're actually really heroic. And he's like, I'm literally not. She goes point by point down his entire criminal history and is like, but you said that for this time when you let a jungle cat out of the zoo, you said it was because he looked sad and you were saving him. And Thorne was like, actually, I just wanted to bring a cat into show and tell to shove it in all my friends' fucking faces. Point by point through everything that he's ever done in his entire life that was like wrong or bad or immoral, Cress is like, this is how you explained it. And Thorne is like, well, I lied. Thorne is like, we can't be in love because like she's so much better than me. I'm like a bad person. I don't want to corrupt her. And Cress is like, I love him, but he doesn't like me because I don't have enough life experience, whatever. So the caravan ends up in a town called Kufra, which is supposedly used to be a very wealthy city before the plague. Kufra was one of the many trade routes between the uranium mines of Central Africa and the Mediterranean, one of Earth's most valuable resources, and we nearly have a monopoly on it, excepting Australia, but there's plenty of demand to share. So you're telling me that this is one of the most wealthy cities in Africa, or formerly one of the wealthiest cities in Africa, with some of the most valuable natural resources, and yet it doesn't have like up-to-date technology and infrastructure? They just decided not to have the infrastructure that the rest of the world has. Why? Anyway, they're in a hotel. On the news, Cress sees that the lunar satellite that she and Thorne had crashed down onto the Sahara has been found. People can tell it was lunar. She's like, well, the caravan people are definitely going to put two and two together. So there's like a full-on manhunt for Cress right now. Cress goes downstairs to tell Thorne that they need to like haul ass somewhere else because they're about to be found. And she sees Thorne like flirting with, well, it turns out to be an escort droid, but Cress doesn't know anything. And so she sees Thorne flirting with another girl and she is distraught. And Gina, who's one of the girlies from the caravan, is comforting her. And then she literally kidnaps Cress. Camera's dying again. God damn it. Alrighty, it is a new day. I heavily considered putting back on the clothes that I was wearing yesterday, but why pretend? What were we talking about? Oh, Cress got kidnapped. So Thorne gets into a brawl in the hotel bar. Jamal, who's like another guy from the caravan, saves him. Jamal is like, listen, buddy, I will pay you $20,000 for that girl. Thorne is like, huh? And Jamal is like, she's a lunar shell. I think you know that she will fetch a pretty penny on the black market, so I'll pay you $20,000. Thorne is like, wow, shit, dick, and balls. What the fuck am I supposed to do about this? Oh, yeah. So Thorne learns that Gina and Jamal are taking Cress to Farah Fra because of this crazy doctor who is, again, trafficking people. Not good energy. So Thorne is like, all right, well then I will go there and I will talk to the doctor and I will get her back. And Jamal is like, he's not going to pay for her twice. What the fuck do you mean? And Thorne is like, well then clearly you don't understand the true value of a woman. Okay, so you remember Prince Kai? Well, it turns out he's having some guilt, let's say, around the fact that he, as the governing body, has let cyborgs exist as second-class citizens. He's like, wow, this is like really unjust. It, in fact, never fails to amaze me how straight men will discover empathy, but only in relation to women that they are attracted to. The fact that he's not able to like extend this basic human empathy and understand until he wanted to boink a cyborg is crazy to me. It's fascinating. Because Kai has decided to have empathy for cyborgs, he decides to stop the cyborg draft. So Cinder is in Africa with Dr. Erland. When he was like, you have to go to Luna, she was like, no. I'm not into that. But now she's kind of rethinking everything because she's realizing that her plan, which is not a plan, is just a really bad idea. And she's like, maybe you're right. Maybe I do need to go to Luna, but how are we going to get there? So she has a new plan, and that new plan is to get Kai to move the wedding to Luna. The wedding is coming up in like 2 days. The idea is that they're going to steal invites from Pearl and Audrey, who are getting invited to the wedding for some reason, and then sneak into the wedding and kidnap the emperor and say like, can you please move the wedding to Luna, please? Once the wedding is on Luna, Cinder will be able to sneak onto Luna with Kai, I think. Also, you remember when Jason was like, my allegiance is to the princess, and we're like, okay, so like he's an ally because he's talking about Princess Celine. Turns out he was actually talking about Princess Winter, who is Queen Lavanna's stepdaughter, and she's cuckoo bananas. So he's now no longer truly an ally. Don't quite know how we feel about him yet. So back to Cress. She is being human trafficked, and the caravan people sell her to Dr. Erland. He is doing some like tests on her, and she attacks him and runs away. And so they're in a hotel, and she runs to a different room and is gonna like try to call someone from the different room. Turns out the room she was in is where Wolf is comatose. Also, the reason that shells are being human trafficked at this point in time is the like platelets in their blood is what the plague antidote is made out of. Everyone on Luna thinks that the shells are taken and murdered. Turns out they're actually taken and like put into storage, like comatose storage, and used as like platelet factories to make the antidote. But Dr. Erland on Earth is like, if I can pay these lunar shells for like some platelet donations, I can make the cure myself. And also, turns out Cress is Dr. Erland's daughter, so that's cool. Okay, so Cress ran to this different hotel room. Turns out that is where Wolf is. She like phones the hotel that her and Thorn were staying in, and she's like, hi, is my husband there? And the lady on the other line is like, no, and actually I think he might be a fugitive and extremely dangerous, but he checked out this morning. And she was like, all right, thank you so much, bye. Literally at that moment, Wolf wakes up out of his coma and he's like, where the fuck am I? What's going on? And he's like pissed. Cress is like, I'm about to get killed. Right at that moment, Thorn shows up, and Cress is like, we're about to get killed. There is a mutant lunar wolf soldier in our presence, and he's probably going to go crazy and kill us. And Thorn is like, oh shit. And then Wolf starts talking, and Thorn is like, wait a minute, Cress, don't scare me like that. That's just Wolf. And Cress is like, yeah, that's a wolf. And he's like, no, that's our friend. That's our friend Wolf. Cress and Cinder and Wolf and Thorn all end up back together, and Dr. Erland is also there, and that's really good. Also, Thorn bought an escort droid body for Aiko, so now Aiko is like a person character instead of like the spaceship character. So they leave the hotel room. They are going back to the Rampion. There's like military people who showed up. Dozens of men and women dressed in the official military uniform of the Commonwealth military had them surrounded, with guns raised. They filled up the roads and the spaces between the buildings, peered down from rooftops and around rust-covered pod ships. They start fighting. It's not going well. They are in fact losing. And then all of the like citizens of this town that they're in come out and start helping them fight. 15% of these people are Lunars, and so they're like mind controlling the guards. It kind of made me cry a little bit. Like I did shed a bit of a tear. Men and women, old and young, dressed in their tattered jeans and loose cotton shirts, their headscarves and cotton hats, their tennis shoes and boots. Cinder gulped. She recognized almost all of them from their brief stay in Farafra. Those who had brought her food, those who had helped her paint the ship, those who had doodled cyborg designs on their bodies. So they're able to win and get away. Scarlet is on Luna, and she has her trial. Lavanna is like, explain yourself. And Scarlet is like, I serve the one true queen of Luna, Princess Celine. She's alive, actually. And everyone who's like watching this trial is like, oh my god, what? That's crazy. She gets a couple words in about how Princess Celine is alive and she's coming to like overthrow the government. Lavanna is like, enough of this, and she forces her to cut off her own finger as like punishment. Scarlet then gets kept in a menagerie with a bunch of animals. It's like open to the lunar public, but it's pretty much Princess Winter's menagerie. Princess Winter becomes really important in the last book. The last book is literally called Winter, so like it's mostly about her. So back to Cinder. She has the plan to sneak into the palace. First, they have to get the actual invitations. So Cinder glamours herself into looking like a palace representative, and she knocks on Pearl and Audrey's door, and she's like, hey, sorry, there's a little bit of a mix-up with your invitations. I just need to take them and, like, I'll give you your proper invitations. So the wedding is using a mix of human waiters, human waiters, and robot waiters, because robots can't be controlled by Lunars, and they're, like, just, like, for safety, you know? So Aiko dresses up as one of the robot waiters, and that's how she is going to sneak into the building. And Cinder, there's, like, escape tunnels. There's, like, a safe house that's kind of far away from the palace, and then there's tunnels connecting it. And so she sneaks in through the safe house and through the tunnels, and that's how Cinder gets into the palace. Cinder is sneaking through the tunnels with Thorn and Dr. Erland as well. Cress and Wolf dress up as party guests, and that's how they're into the palace. Then they're using the invitations that Cinder got from Pearl and Audrey, right? We all on the same page? We got it? I know that was a little convoluted. The plan is for Thorn and Dr. Erland to go to the medical wing and fix Thorn's eyesight and then set off some sort of distraction that is a diversion so that Cinder is able to go up to Prince Kai's quarters and convince him to go with them. While Dr. Erland is fixing Thorn's eyes, he realizes that he caught the plague. Remember the new plague that actually can infect Lunars as well? Did I talk about that? Anyway, there's a new plague, and the plague can infect Lunars. Dr. Erland has caught the plague. He tests Thorn. Thorn is negative for the plague. So Dr. Erland is like, here are your eye drops. Put them like twice a day for 10 days. You should be fine. I'm going to set off the plague alarm. Thorn hauls ass out of there. And since Cress is like a technology wizard, she shut down all of the cameras in the palace, so they're able to sneak around uninterrupted. After all of this, Cinder ends up in the Emperor's suite, and she's like, hey Kai, we have to kidnap you. He's like, huh? So like, they don't actually kidnap him. That's like a bit of a strong word for what's going on here. What really happens is Cinder like explains the plan that she's gonna pretend to kidnap him, she's gonna release him, and he's gonna move the wedding to Luna to prevent things like that from happening ever again. He goes willingly, but Cinder does shoot him with her little tranquilizer darts, which is not very slay. So all parties converge on the roof. It is Cress, Kai, Cinder, Thorn, Dr. Erland has the plague, so he is not with us, Wolf, Cress? No, Cinder, Wolf, Thorn, Cress, Kai. All 5 of them. Oh, and Aiko. The 6 of them are on the roof. Jason is going to be their pilot. Turns out Jason is a little fucking rat. He ratted them out to thaumaturge Mira, Sybil Mira, who is like the head thaumaturge. So they have like a big fight. Cress and Thorn kiss. Then Cinder mind controls Sybil, which drives Sybil crazy. And then so she jumps off the roof. She kills herself. The besties are able to escape. So they're in space and shit. Cinder, Thorn, Wolf, Cress, Aiko, and Kai. Cinder tells Kai that she is Princess Celine. And Kai and Cinder are like kind of in love despite the fact that they haven't spent much time together. But they're in love, I guess. It's only a little weird that Kai is supposed to marry Cinder's aunt, but they acknowledge it. They're like, hey, this is kind of nasty and gross. Let's not talk about it. And that's like pretty much the end of this book, I think. Yeah, that's the end of the book. They're in space. Kai has been kidnapped. The end. Alrighty, 1 book left. Let's fucking go. 4th and final book. Well, okay, not to like get too bogged down in the weeds. I was such a big fan of this series. There are a couple of like extra companion books. Actually, let me freaking grab them. There is Fairest, which is Queen Lavanna's story and like how she got to be the way that she is. Stars Above, which is just like a collection of more short stories. They don't have that big of an impact on the main story at large. This is Winter, the 4th and final book in the series. Now, this book is 800 pages long. Books don't need to be that long. My hot take is that if you can't say it in 600 pages or less, was it really all worth saying? That's all I have to say. And also, like, it doesn't look that much thicker than Cress. This one has like Bible pages. Like the pages are so thin. Let's go, home stretch. I believe in us. We open with Jason on trial for not apprehending Cinder when he had the chance. Queen Lavanna is like, well, you were hanging out with her for like a not insignificant amount of time. At no point were you like, let me turn her in. And Jason's defense is like, well, how do you think Sybil knew where she was going to be? I sent her a message that was like, meet us on the roof. The problem is that this message was sent anonymously, and so there's no actual proof that he's the one who sent it. Lavanna decides to let him live because Jason and Princess Winter, besties, best frickin' friends, and like lovers who kiss in the nighttime, maybe? So let's talk about Princess Winter for a second. She is crazy. She's absolutely nuts. I don't know how I haven't spoken about it yet, but if you don't use the lunar power, you go crazy. Like, it fucks with your brain. Winter decided when she was, like, really young that she was not going to use her lunar power. She has really bad hallucinations. She's kind of like the laughingstock of the lunar court. Winter has these 3 scars down her cheek. She was the most beautiful girl in the whole wide world. Of course, Queen Lavanna can't have that. So she forced Winter to like mutilate her own face. Since Winter doesn't use her lunar magic, she just like wears these scars out openly, which is really interesting and fascinating to the people of Luna. They don't like understand that energy. And so people really love her. She was best friends with Princess Selena when they were young. And she has like these really traumatic memories of her best friend burning up in a fire. And that like contributes to some of her crazy. She's also madly and deeply in love with Jason. They were childhood best friends. Winter is also beloved by the citizens of Luna. She is the people's princess. People freaking love her. So after the trial, Winter and Jason are hanging out. Jason is like, remember Princess Celine? She's actually alive. Jason tells Winter that Selena is coming to Luna. Scarlet is being kept as a pet for Princess Winter in this menagerie. She hates Winter because she's literally being held captive. They will become friends eventually, but at this time, Winter really wants to be friends with Scarlet, and she calls her Scarlet friend. Scarlet is like, absolutely not, you are my captor and I hate you. Winter like secretly slips a note to Scarlet to say that her friends are coming for her, but as she lifted the candy from the box, she saw something unexpected tucked beneath it, a handwritten message. Patience, friend, they're coming for you. Luna has launched a full-scale war on Earth. Many of the gardens were smoking from fires set by the Queen's soldiers, statues toppled, and the massive gate torn to shreds. But the palace itself remained untouched. So far, the single regiment of Commonwealth military stationed at the palace had kept the enemy at bay while they waited for reinforcements to arrive. They are fully in war right now. They are full on in war territory because Kai got kidnapped. Also, Thorn got his sight back somewhere in this. Thorn is in love with Cress, and Cress is in love with Thorn. However, Thorn doesn't think that Cress is in love with him because he's like, I'm not a good guy and she is constantly disappointed by me. And Cress doesn't think that Thorn is in love with her because she's like, I don't know anything and I'm too naive and he's so like worldly. I wish that they would just communicate effectively, but I'm kind of here for this energy. Like, you know, a little romance subplot. I'm into it. I like it. Kai tells Thorn that he will try to get him pardoned for all of his numerous crimes that he committed against several different countries. The condition is Thorn has to return the Rampion because it's a stolen ship. Thorn is like, no, this is my ship. And Kai's like, no, but it's not though. You stole it. So you have to return it and then I will try to get you pardoned. And he's like, fine, I guess. So they end up giving Kai back. They unkidnap him. What's it called? They return him. They return Kai. But to make it look realistic, Wolf punches Kai in the face so that he has like, it looks like he was having a terrible time while he's been kidnapped. The plan is Kai will tell Lavanna that they need to move the wedding to Luna to prevent security breaches from happening again. His ship will pick up Cinder and the gang when they're on their way to Luna, so that they can break into Luna and start like a revolt and a war. And now that the wedding is back on, Lavanna agreed to stop the war. Back on Luna, Winter is walking around the city. She's super kind, she's super generous, she's very charitable. Some kids see her, and these kids give her a flower crown, and they put it on her head. And Jason is like, don't fucking do that. And Winter's like, girl, why? It's just some kids. And Jason is like, if Lavanna sees this, she will think you are trying to usurp her throne, and she will kill you. Winter is like, well, she's not gonna see it. Like, what are the chances of her trolling these security cameras, this specific security camera at this specific time? I won't do it again, but like, she probably won't see it. And then later that day, Thaumaturge Amory, who is the new head Thaumaturge because Thaumaturge Sybil killed herself, he asks Winter to marry him, and she's like, no, because he is a creep and the worst. And she's like, I don't want to marry you. And also, she's in love with Jason. Kai and all the other Earthen diplomats are on their way to Luna. They get a phone call from another ship. The ship is like, hi, we're some American diplomats. Our ship is broken. Can you please let us on? This is the plan. That American ship is the Rampion, and it's actually just Cinder and her besties. Kai's like, yes, let's stop the ship and help them, because he's in on the plan. Cinder and the gang get onto the ship. They're disguised. There's no problems. They end up going to Luna. Once they get to Luna, though, Queen Lavanna welcomes everyone. She's like, hi, thank you so much for coming. We unfortunately are going to have to search your ships because our radar showed that you stopped at a certain point. And Kai's like, yeah, we stopped to pick up some American diplomats. And she's like, seems suspicious. We're still going to have to search you. Team Cinder are in dire straits at this current point in time because their plan, which is a stupid plan. Some of these plans, I'm like, oh yeah, you are a 16-year-old because this is the plan that a 16-year-old would come up with. No foresight. Their plan was to stay on the ships while Lavanna greeted everyone, and then when they left, they were gonna like sneak out. It's a wonder to me that they didn't anticipate the ships being searched. They send Cress out to disable the doors to the underground tunnels. Lunars can sense people's energies, but since Cress is a shell, she can't be sensed. So they send her out to disable the doors, also because she's like a computer genius. The other girlies run the fuck away. Send me as a decoy out the main ramp and away from the maglev doors. I'll draw them off long enough for you to get out through the cargo bay. Cress gets separated from the group, but she finds a spot to hide in the ships after they all get searched. She like circles back, hides in the ship, and the rest end up leaving. But Winter, she sees Cress and she ends up hiding her better. And then later she comes back with Jason and she's like, Jason, you have to protect this girl. And so Cress ends up hiding out in Jason's guard bunk for, the next significant chunk of the book. I feel that now I should take a moment to explain how the topography of Luna works. Obviously they're on the moon, so each sector is a dome. There's the capital, which is called Artemisia, maybe? I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know how to pronounce anything. But there's the capital. The capital is super wealthy. and it's in like a big dome. All the other outer sectors are also in separate domes that are connected through like subway systems that are under the surface of the moon. Regolith is the rock that the moon is made out of, I guess. There's cave systems underneath the surface of the moon. The plan right now is for Cinder and the rest of the gang to go to Regolith Mining Sector 9, which is where Wolf grew up. And they're going to find Wolf's family and stay with them while they figure out, like, the next steps of their plan. I mean, I feel like you're putting a lot up to faith there. Like, you're just really hoping that Wolf's mom is going to be a nice person. But, like, I understand that we don't have a lot of options right now. Cress also has a video that Cinder filmed while she was on the spaceship that was like, I am Princess Celine and I'm here to take the throne and lead a revolution. But the issue is Cress has this, and now Cress and Cinder are separated. They end up making it to Wolf's mom's house in RM9. Her name is Maha Kesley, and she's really nice. The outer sectors are really poor. They're really strictly rationed. Like, things are brutal out there for them. It is very Hunger Games coded. Like, the capital is very fancy and opulent and rich, and then, like, the outer sectors are so poor. They meet Wolf's mom. She's really down to hide them while they come up with the rest of their plan. Now back to Jason. Jason gets told by Queen Lavanna that he needs to kill Princess Winter. And he's like, I can't do that. And Queen Lavanna is like, well, I need her to be killed, and I think it is very kind of me for you to kill her. She's like, I know you'll kill her really quick and painlessly, and I can't guarantee that someone else will do that. Turns out, Queen Lavanna did see the crown thing. She saw the kids give Princess Winter that flower crown, and she was like, she's going to try to overthrow me. And we can't have that. So she needs to be killed. So he's like, okay, I'll kill her. Jason hatches a plan. Okay, my notes just say Cress Camera's world escape with Scarlet. I don't remember what that means. Oh, right. So this is the plan. Jason is going to get Cress to disable the cameras for like a really short period of time. Right before the cameras go out, he's going to take Princess Winter and he's going to like kill an animal near her. You know, in Snow White when he like brings back the heart of I feel like it's a bear, the heart of a bear to... Is it a bear? In Snow White, when the huntsman is supposed to kill Snow White and he instead sets her free, is it the heart of a rabbit? He brings back a heart in a box to show the evil queen that he actually did kill her. But I feel that a heart of a rabbit would be too small, but a heart of a bear would be too big. Well, anyway, Jason kills a wolf in place of Winter, and he tells her to lie down and play dead until the cameras are cut. He then tells Scarlet, he's like, you're going to go to Regolith Mining 9 and you're going to find your friends and you're going to take Winter with you and you're going to protect her with your life. He goes for a walk with Winter around this menagerie and he's like, I have to kill you. And she's like, well, if you're going to kill me, I might as well tell you that I love you. So she has like a nice deathbed confession. Jason, she said with a shaky smile, you must know I cannot remember a time when I didn't love you. I don't think such a time ever existed. His eyes filled with 1,000 emotions. But before he could say whatever he would say, before he could kill her, Winter grabbed the front of his shirt with both hands and kissed him. I love a deathbed confession of love. I'm into this energy. The cameras and the light shut out. He stabs a wolf behind Winter. She's like lying there in a pool of blood. He's like, do not move. He goes back to Scarlet. He tells her how to fly the spaceship. He gives her his security clearance. I suggest going through the gamekeeper's hall first. Winter will know the way from there. We'll do what we can about the security, but try not to do anything stupid. And if you're tempted to try and leave Luna, fight it. You'll just draw attention, and that little pod isn't equipped for far distances anyway. Act like you're going to pick up a delivery in RM9. That's where your boyfriend grew up. Do you understand? Scarlet is like, no, but I'll try my best. Once again, I love this energy of having everyone separately heading to the same spot and they don't know that each other is okay. I love that. I think that's very excellent writing. He goes to Queen Lavanna. He's like, I killed her. It's on video that he like stabbed her, quote unquote stabbed her. He actually stabbed the wolf behind her. He's like, I threw her body into the incinerator so that there was no like evidence. And then he was like, I also killed the wolf to sort of cover my tracks. And Lavanna is like, slay, thank you so much. You have shown that you're loyal to me. Winter and Scarlet make it to Maha Kesley's house in RM9, and there's a very love-filled, teary reunion. Princess Winter, absolute ally. I don't exactly remember how, but they end up playing Cinder's video that Cress had. I think she like put it on a USB. I don't know how it happened. Doesn't matter how it happened. The video plays. Cinder is like, I am the true queen of Luna. Citizens of Luna, I ask that you stop what you're doing and listen to this message. My name is Celine Blackburn. I'm the daughter of the late Queen Canary, niece to Princess Lavanna, and the rightful heir to Luna's throne. In my absence, Lavanna has enslaved you. She takes your sons and turns them into monsters. She takes your shell infants and slaughters them. But Lavanna's rule is coming to an end. I have returned, and I am here to take back what's mine. Then she has a sassy little call to action. Upon the commencement of the royal coronation, I ask that all able-bodied citizens join me in a march against Artemisia and the Queen's palace. Together, we will guarantee a better future for Luna, a future without oppression, a future in which any Lunar, no matter the sector they live in or the family they were born to, can achieve their ambition and live without fear of unjust persecution or a lifetime of slavery. I don't know how persuaded I personally would be, but I understand that these people are very poor, they are in really dire situations, and so and if something comes along to give them hope, sure, why not? I understand why they believe it. Consider this riot officially incited. So now all we have to do is wait to see if this works out for her, to see if people actually believe her. Now, because of this video, Lavanna is pissed off. She's angry. First of all, she's like, how can this happen? Second of all, she's like, the people are starting to revolt. The people start to listen. They start to actually riot. So she puts on her little thinking cap. She's like, okay, let's do some propaganda. So she takes Kai and films some propaganda. So he's like, don't listen to her. She's crazy. And then this video plays on repeat in all of the outer sectors. The propaganda doesn't super work. We've kind of opened Pandora's box. Once the secret is out, people are not going to continue to listen to this propaganda. Queen Lavanna sends guards out to RM9, but they revolt, which is super slay. However, there are too many guards. They threaten to have every single person killed unless one person tells them where Cinder is hiding. No one does. And then Maha Kesley is like, I believe that she is Princess Celine. I believe that she is going to create a new future for us. And Maha Kesley is murdered. Fight breaks out. There is a battle. Wolf is taken away by some of the Lunar guards. The battle ends. A lot of people die, but Cinder's side eventually wins. During the battle, Winter and Aiko are hiding in Maha Kesley's house, and some guards come in and they spot them. There's this one guard, and he's like, oh, yo, Princess Winter, I thought you were dead. And the other guard is like, well, let's take her back to the queen. And the first guard shoots the second guard and helps Aiko and Winter escape. The guard who killed the other guard, his name is Kinney. We kind of like him. But in this battle, Wolf gets taken, and he gets taken back to the palace and turned into a super mega wolf soldier. So he was already a wolf soldier. Then they do some new and improved body mods to him, and he gets turned into even more if he was 25% wolf, 75% guy earlier, he's now 75% wolf, 25% guy, which makes him much more dangerous, but it also means that he can't be controlled as easily by the Lunar guards. So essentially beforehand, he was more human than wolf, so his brainwaves could still be manipulated. But now that he's more wolf than person, the way that they control them is by training them like dogs rather than manipulating their brain and brainwashing them. If he's not fully trained, he can't be controlled at all. Wedding time, Wolf ends up being taken to the wedding as a symbol of how the resistance is not going to work. It's a wedding, they do wedding things. One of the wedding traditions that they do is Lavanna and Kai have their hands together, and then they tie a ribbon around the two of their hands, and then they have to cut the ribbon for some reason, so they have these scissors. Kai takes the scissors and he's gonna stab Lavanna and kill her. Right when he's about to actually murder her, she turns herself into Cinder. In the spirit of honesty, I was a little confused when I was reading this. Lavanna's like, I thought I might make this whole process easier for you and turn myself into someone that you actually would want to marry. And he's like, how fucking dare you? Kinney goes to Jason and he's like, don't mean to freak you out, but when we were there, we found your ship with your security clearance at RM9. And they're going to come and they're going to apprehend you and kill you for treason. So Jason and Cress run away. When they're running away, they run into Thorn and Aiko. And I think that's it. I'm a silly goose who forgot to mention it. Cinder, at the end of their battle in RM9, got apprehended and taken to the palace for trial. Winter and Scarlet together decided to go and try to find more people to fight for their battle. Winter's big idea was to talk to some of the wolf soldiers. So they went to try to find some wolf soldiers to like rally into their cause. Cinder's trial is set to take place after the wedding, which is now. And it's going to be televised so that everyone can watch it. At Cinder's trial, they decide that her punishment for treason is going to be death by dismemberment. And while she's there, she's looking up at Queen Lavanna and her cyborg brain starts going crazy. And she starts recording a video and her cyborg brain is like deconstructing everything. She can see under Lavanna's glamour and turns out her face is like super scarred and disfigured. So Cinder records a video of that face. So she's like, I'll just keep this for later. She then mind controls 11 guards and opens fires on the room, and everyone is there because this is such like a high profile execution. Also, the way that this like trial execution room is set up is there's a big balcony and the balcony doesn't have any railings on it and it overlooks Artemisia Lake. So Cinder, she like mind controls the guard, she shoots up the room, and then she runs, jumps off the balcony, lands in the lake. Here's the thing. Let's not forget that Cinder is like 35% computer, which are definitely not waterproof. The cyborg parts of herself go absolute haywire, shut down. So she's trying to swim across this lake with like 50% of a body that doesn't work. Miraculously, she is able to swim across the entire lake. So she swims to the very edge of the lake. The other side of the lake is just the dome. There's nowhere to go. It's very Truman Show-esque, like, you know, when he sails across the whole ocean and then he gets to the end and it's just like that door. Very much that energy, except for there's no door. And by that point, she's so exhausted, so she starts like sinking. And her body is heavy because it is 35% electronic. Thorn and Jason to the rescue. They save her. They pull her out of the water. So they break into this house of this person who was staying at the palace for the wedding to sort of regroup. Lavanna starts telling everybody that like she killed herself. She's dead. They stage some photos of like them dragging a body out of the lake that is supposedly Cinder, but it's not. It's just propaganda. Cinder, Cress, Thorn, Aiko, and Jason are all together. They're in this fancy house that they broke into. Cinder's cyborg brain, though, is completely broken. So she doesn't have her usual like cyborg powers that she usually has. They were able to recover that video of Lavanna under her glamour, which is a big deal because there are no videos of Lavanna out there. Wolf has been turned into the mega mutant wolf soldier. Kai and Lavanna are officially married, and Lavanna is about to be the Empress of the Eastern Commonwealth as soon as the coronation happens. Scarlet and Winter, let's talk about them again. They're down in the mining tubes and they're trying to recruit the mutant wolf soldiers to the cause. At first, it's not going super well, but then Winter is like, I don't use my powers, and she's an Earth and she doesn't have any powers, and so we will never control you. The wolf people's spokesperson, his name is Alpha Strom, he goes, we will accept your offer if you swear to never control us as they have done. My pack will fight for your evolution. So they've recruited a bunch of wolf soldiers to fight for their side, which is really good because no one who's currently fighting, we'll call it the revolution, they are not fighters. They are not military people. They are not trained in combat, and there's going to be a fight and they are not prepared for that. So it's really positive that they have some people who know how to fight because they can help train the other people and also just be like, you know, reinforcements on the battlefield. Scarlet, Winter, and all the wolves go up to the nearest sector, which happens to be a lumber sector, and the lumber sector is already revolting. Turns out multiple sectors are revolting, I think around like 85. Lavanna also learns that Winter is alive, even though Jason said he killed her. So Queen Lavanna is like, well, if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. So she goes undercover. She disguises herself as an old woman. She goes to the lumber sector and she gives Winter some candy. Now, unfortunately, this candy is infected with the new plague variant that will infect lunars and kill them. So Winter eats the candy. She gets the plague. So Scarlet goes to try to help save her. Scarlet gets the plague. So they decide to put Winter into one of the suspended animation tanks because it will slow the progression of the disease and buy her a bit more time. But there is now officially a plague outbreak in this lumber sector. So they put the entire sector under quarantine. New plan alert. Cinder sees that one of the sectors is under plague quarantine. They see a picture of Winter in the suspended animation tank, and Scarlet's there also, and they're like, oh, okay, so the besties are there, so we have to save them. The plan is to break into the palace, steal just like so much of the antidote, save the lumber sector, and then, I don't know, like overthrow the government or whatever. Cress and Thorn dress up as lunar people to sneak into the coronation, and I need to explain to you the outfits that they're wearing because these fits go so fucking crazy. Cress's outfit, which was part cocktail dress, part butterfly costume. An orange tutu barely reached her mid-thigh and was gaudy enough when paired with the glitz-covered, form-fitting bodice. 2 sheer swaths of material had been sewn onto the bodice's back and did in fact connect to the fingerless orange elbow-length gloves Aiko relinquished. So when Cress spread her arms, it gave the effect of a pair of black and yellow butterfly wings opening behind her. Aiko had found a tiny blue hat in the accessories chest that had a pair of spring and feathered balls on top, what Cress assumed were meant to be the antennae. Thorne adjusted his bow tie. He was in a lean, plum-toned suit that was surprisingly flattering on him despite having been dragged out of a stranger's closet. The bow tie had tiny threaded lights running through the fabric, making the collar of his white shirt glow in different shades of neon. King has got a light-up tie, and that's fashion.
It's fashion meets... It's fashion. It's fashion? Is it wait, but is it fashion?
Jason and Cinder and Aiko go into the labs to steal the antidote. Cress and Thorne are going to go and sneak into the coronation and power down some of the cameras. Because that's all that Cress does. She powers down cameras for the whole book. So Cinder and Jason and Aiko are in the labs and they get all the antidote, but then some people come in and say well, what the fuck are we supposed to do? Aiko sends herself out as a sacrifice because she essentially can't be killed because she's a robot. Jason and Cinder have to haul ass out of there with the antidote. While Jason and Cinder are risking their literal lives, Thorne and Cress are they found a nice little room and they're making out and they're declaring how much they love each other. I am kind of obsessed with the YA thing that happens where we're in life or death situations and people are great, this is the time where we're going to talk about our feelings. I am sure that we are not thinking clearly in this moment because we have so much adrenaline coursing through our veins, so maybe it's not the time to be telling people that we love them for the first time. Just a thought. I'm just brainstorming here, just bouncing ideas. It doesn't feel the best idea to me personally. But if that's your journey, I love that energy for you. So Jason and Cinder ride off on this dune buggy thing and they head to the lumber sector. They deliver the antidote. I have some questions about this antidote. If you drink it before you're exposed to the plague, does it make you immune to the plague? If you take it while you have the plague, it cures you from the plague? Is it the same antidote? How effective is it? Is it 100% effective? Is it 95% effective? Do we know how effective it is? How long does it take to work after you've taken it when you already have the plague? Is there a stage of the plague where you're too far gone and the antidote won't help? I'm confused. I wish we had more information on this antidote. Back in the palace, Thorne and Cress are sneaking around and Thorne gets shot and then thrown into jail by one of the guards, but Cress is sneaky, so she didn't get captured yet. She's trying to find her way around. She accidentally happens upon Emperor Kai's personal quarters. How does that happen on accident? Where is the security? But anyway, it's a happy accident because Kai helps her sneak into the propaganda room and she schedules, I don't know how it works. She schedules a time for the video of Lavanna and her disfigured, deformed face to go out. Now it's coronation time. Cinder and her small army of untrained civilians are storming the capital. They're storming Artemisia. A battle is ensuing. Aiko shoots Wolf. My man keeps getting shot by people who are supposed to be his allies. Again, it's not entirely Aiko's fault. She was shooting at Lavanna. Lavanna used Wolf as a human shield. He cannot catch a break. He keeps getting used as human shields. What's up with that? Oh, so the video plays at some point during this battle and Lavanna loses her shit. Beneath the glamour, her face was disfigured from ridges and scars, sealing her left eye shut. The destroyed skin continued down her jaw and neck, disappearing beneath the collar of her dress. Her hair was thinner and a lighter shade of brown, and great chunks were missing where the scars had reached around to the back of her head. More scars could be seen on her left arm where her silk sleeve didn't hide them. Burns. They were scars created from burns. Cinder knew with absolute certainty. She loses control over all the people that she was controlling, and she loses control over her own glamour. So instead of just seeing this on the video, people are seeing in real life that this is what Lavanna actually looks like. Bodies are dropping, they are losing. Cinder and her side is losing. Just in the nick of time, Winter pulls up with her reinforcements. Remember, all the wolf soldiers and all the people from the lumber sector, they hadn't been part of the battle yet. Now they're showing up, which is really good because the numbers were dwindling. When Winter shows up, it sort of tips the scale, but not really. Winter is fighting, and she's trying to stay out of the way. And then Thaumaturge Amory, remember him? He's the new head Thaumaturge and the one who asked Winter to marry him. He's coming up to Winter. He's going to kill her. And Scarlet starts sneaking up behind him and is don't do that. Amory is you think I wouldn't be able to notice you trying to sneak up on me, you stupid earthen? He goes to kill Scarlet. Winter uses her mind power for the first time essentially ever. She forces Scarlet to stab Amory instead before he killed her. And this breaks Winter's spirit. She's I killed someone. and I vowed I would never do harm, and that's why I don't use my lunar power, and I murdered someone. I'm like, girl, it was life or death. You didn't have a choice. And I'm sure Scarlet will forgive you. I understand why she's upset. She will never be the same. In sort of the mayhem, Lavanna goes to the throne room to like retreat, and Cinder follows her. They're like duking it out with words, let's just say. Thorn and Cress show up, and also Wolf ends up in the throne room. This is really bad because the more people who are in there, the more people who are at Lavanna's disposal to use as like human weapons, except for Cress, because Cress is a shell. Cress tries to shoot the queen, doesn't work. And then Thorn stabs Cress. Uh-oh. And he feels really bad about it because, you know, they're in love. Thorn ran too, yanking Cress's attention back to him. In one movement, he knocked Cress's arm up with his elbow while simultaneously with his non-injured hand, driving the knife into her stomach, burying the hilt. So Cress is stabbed. Thorn is grieving. I don't know how they decide this. I think Lavanna's tired. She can't control anyone anymore, and Cinder doesn't really want to. So they have their, like, final big boss battle, which is just Cinder versus Lavanna. They're like mind controlling each other, and they both have guns. Lavanna flushed red. She pinched her teeth in renewed concentration, and Cinder felt her own arm following suit. Her traitor of a hand lifted the gun and pressed the barrel against her own temple. She was a mirror image of her aunt, each of them primed to shoot. So they're each about to shoot themselves in the head. And finally, Lavanna is like, I surrender, please, like, you can have everything, you can have my crown, you can have whatever, just, like, let me live. And Cinder's like, oh, dope, sick, hell yeah. Girl, don't believe her. She's lying to you. Turns out she was lying to her. Lavanna stabs her. In the same movement, she grabbed the forgotten knife and lurched forward, driving the blade into Cinder's heart. You're probably sitting here wondering, I wonder how Cinder's gonna get out of this pickle. She just got stabbed in the heart. We don't have to worry about that because time jump. 3 days later, Cinder survives. The first people we catch up with after the time jump is Scarlet and Wolf, and they, like, confess their love to each other, even though Wolf is, like, again, 75% wolf, 25% person. I hate to say it. That is furry behavior. Cinder survived, and Lavanna died. I don't know how she died. Turns out when Lavanna stabbed Cinder, it, like, punctured one of the artificial chambers of her heart, and since Lavanna is dead, Cinder is now officially the Queen of Luna. They, like, ran a DNA test on her while she was in a coma. They discovered that she is indeed the princess, and so now that means she's the queen. Winter's in also not a great place. She's either like in a coma or passed out, and then Jason does that fairy tale thing where he kisses her while she's asleep, which I will give a pass because it is the fairy tale retelling, whatever. Cinder calls a meeting with all of the important diplomats of all of the earthen nations. She has some things to say. First, she makes a couple demands of Earth. She's like, I will remove all of the military units that are on Earth back to Luna. She says that she will continue to produce and distribute the plague antidote. She's also like, we're gonna stop enslaving shells to be platelet factories. It might be a little bit harder to make the antidote now, but she's like, we'll share it as soon as we get it. I want to make it clear that these requests are just that, requests. Your answer won't change my mind about any of the promises I've made. This isn't a negotiation. The first thing she asks for is for cyborgs to be treated as equal citizens. Everyone's like, slay, sounds good. The second thing she asks for is a little crazy. She says, I ask that all restrictions on lunar immigration be removed. Luna should be free to come and go between Luna and Earth as they please. I don't want Luna to feel like a prison to its citizens anymore. Likewise, once we're prepared for it, I will open Luna's ports to any Earthen travel and immigration, like it used to be when Luna first became a country and trade and travel were encouraged. Everyone who's in this meeting is like, hey, wait a minute, that's a terrible idea because Lunars can literally control humans. Cinder is like, my adopted father who died, he in fact had an invention that would stop humans from being able to be controlled by Lunar. And everyone's like, yeah, but do we know how to make that? Turns out Aiko's faulty personality, the reason why it is the way that it is because the code to Lynn Garen's invention is just like hanging out in Aiko's personality chip. They like contract a doctor of cybernetics to rebuild this, and they're going to give all the royalties to Audrey and Pearl. Cress and Thorn make up, even though he literally stabbed her, but they're in love now, which is good for them. And Winter is asked to be the first ever lunar ambassador on Earth. I do have some questions about that choice. She's in a very precarious position with her mental health, so I don't know that asking her to be an ambassador on Earth, if that's the best idea. Cinder has her coronation, and so she's officially the Queen of Luna. Here's the thing. Cinder is in love with Kai, and she also doesn't really want to be queen, so she decides that as soon as she thinks that Luna can handle it, they're going to turn into, a constitutional monarchy? to a republic. Kai is like, so like, maybe would you eventually want to be the Empress of the Eastern Commonwealth? And Cinder's like, yeah, maybe eventually I could. The end. We did it. We made it through 4 ridiculously long books. Let's do some final thoughts. Let's wrap up. I'm ready to be finished with this forever. I actually fuck with this series so hard. I love these books. They're very nostalgic for me. You know, they're quite flawed books, but they're fun to read. In general, I actually think it's genuinely really well written. Like, I was emotionally invested in this. Is it a bit racist? Yes. Are there some real questionable things? Yes, of course. It is a YA book written in 2012. Like, that's kind of what you're gonna get. I just think in general, it's like important to critically engage with the content that we enjoy consuming. Like, you can enjoy something and still acknowledge how it is flawed. And these books are extremely flawed, but they're delightful. Anyway, that is it. I have a Goodreads and an Instagram, and it will all be linked below. Also, if you want to request a bad book, that will also be linked below. There have definitely been multiple requests in the submission box to talk about the Lunar Chronicles. So here you go. You are so welcome for this. I don't know. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye. Goodbye. Fare thee well. Shut up. Literally shut the fuck up. I hate you.